Um, This is a joint meeting of the Committee on Human Service. Oh, wait a minute. Are our TV folks, where did she go?
Okay.
Oh, she's there. Are we all set? Okay. So this is a joint meeting of the Committee on Human Services and the Committee on Rules and Ordinances. We're here to discuss the revision of the noise ordinance. The last ordinance was written in 1983, so we're here, they have been here trying to revise this ordinance. My name is Tony Palumbo. I'm the chair of the Human Services Committee, and to my right is Councilor Anthony Donato, who is the chair of the Rules and Ordinances Committee, and to my left is Councilor Lisa Feltner, who is the Secretary of Rules and Ordinances. To her left is Councilor Forkoff, who is the Secretary of Human Services, and to her left is Councilor Bays, who's the Vice Chair of Human Services. So, welcome you all for coming. We appreciate it. Actually, I was expecting a bigger turnout, but I want to thank you all for being here. I want to just from the town, I want to acknowledge Councilor Vincent Picciarelli, the Vice President of the Council, and the District C Councilor who's here, and in Chief Captain Dupree from the Watertown Police Department is here with us, and Jesse, I forgot your last name. I'm glad I have colleagues. Jesse Maya, who is representing the Department of Public Works. We also, who else do we have? Is that?
Leo Martin, Conservation.
I'm sorry, Leo Martin, I apologize. Mr. Martin, who is the chair of the Conservation Commission. And then other folks who I'm very familiar faces with. So I just want to make well, first ask if my colleagues have anything to say before we begin.
Thank
Yes.
you for taking the time to be here again.
And you're on TV, so just, no. Yes, of course.
Hi, I spent a considerable amount of time talking to a resident yesterday morning about an issue that she's having with noise. And in the course of talking to her, we realized that currently the complaint she was talking about was actually already illegal according to our noise ordinance, but it was very difficult to enforce because it involved cars that were traveling near the edge of town and motorcycles that were revving their engines late at night. And what I really wanted to say, and as we were discussing it, is we can only do so much with this noise ordinance. I hope it makes a big difference for people. I hope that we can actually create a change in town. But the other part of this is that we have to be respectful of each other, and we have to be considerate of each other as we're driving around town, going around town, carrying boom boxes around town. We have to be respectful of each other in order to create the kind of community that we want to live in. So I just wanted to pass that on, that was part of the conversation that I think we also need to have around noise.
Thank you. Okay, so I wanted to just say a few things. We've had, since the last meeting, we've had 2 emails, which we'll put in the record for, with the minutes. One was from Susan Cook, who you may know is very committed to addressing the issue of noise and has provided us with some health information about the negative aspects of noise to our health. And so we'll put that in here. She also, just as a quick note, mentioned a effort by James Farwell and others in D.C., which was to ban leaf blowers, and there's a long reference to that article in her piece. Steve Kennedy also submitted an email with very specific suggestions on changes. If we don't actually get to those particular topics tonight, we will keep this handy and make sure that his suggestions are noted and spoken about. So we have two things that will definitely go in as attachments to the mailing, to the minutes of this meeting. I don't know if folks had an opportunity to look at the minutes of the last meeting. They were done quite long. There were 10 pages. They were done by Ann Corti, and we then turned those into a 2-page review of the minutes. I just want to mention a couple of things that stand out for me from the minutes. One is I want to appreciate Councilor Donato. He included all the Somerville ordinance in Section B, which was not there before, and in the new draft, you'll see it. He has also been doing a wonderful job at keeping us on target in terms of what version is what, and I want to appreciate that.
Yeah.
This section of the replacement of Section B with the Somerville language was up for further review, and we'll talk about that when we can. Where's the sign-up sheet? Can let me just push that over to the front.
Thanks, Dan.
So also want to mention that at one point we need to call on the administration to help us in this process, because we've asked them as a committee, which passed 6-0, that they start to think about a standardized measuring tool which would be available to any enforcement entity, no matter whatever the enforcement entity might be. And once we get that tool, or once they recommend a tool, we would have to include that in the definitions, which is something that's not in the definitions today. And I think those are, to me, the outstanding points that I wanted to reference before we begin today's discussion. The process we'll use is the same process we've used before. We've taken our time with this ordinance, and I don't think that's going to change. We're going to try to go through it as carefully as possible. This is what I've suggested to Councilor Donato, and he felt like it was a pretty good approach. That what we'd like to do today is try to get through the rest of the ordinance where we left off. Try to get through the last sections, which is a very important section. It's a big section. And then there's something on enforcement and something on penalties. And then we would hold another meeting. Actually, what the request of the councilors is that they then take that version when it's ready, go through it in detail, and highlight any concerns that they might have. The members of the community can do the same thing. And that the following meeting would be then going through the ordinance carefully, looking at any changes or suggested changes people might have. We would then send that after the committees voted whatever on which way they would, whatever each of those concerns. We would then bring that to the lawyer for a final look, and then we'd hope, what I would hope would be the final meeting to approve the town lawyers in our revisions. So today we want to try to get through the ordinance, and then when we meet again, we'd like hopefully everybody to look carefully at the final version, noting any changes or suggestions they have. We have a meeting to discuss those. We then present the results of that to the lawyer. The lawyer then takes a peek at it, which usually doesn't have too many changes. We bring it back for formal voting and then to the full town council for a vote. So that's what I hope we can do tonight, is hope we can do for the next couple of meetings as we move forward. I've been asked, I was going to jump right into where we left off, but I also want to take a moment. Marjorie has asked if she could just make a quick statement, and she has been patiently waiting. I'm going to ask her to go ahead, Marjorie, if you want to speak, and I'd speak into the mic. That mic is on, right?
Yes, there's a green light on here. Thank you for recognizing me this evening. My name is...
Marjorie, you do need to speak in the mic. We can't hear you at all.
Okay. My name is Marjorie Greenberg. Thank you for recognizing me this evening and giving me this chance to make my statement. Okay, so I'm Marjorie Greenberg. I live in an apartment overlooking Main Street between the police department and the fire department. I understand living there, I would hear on occasion emergency vehicles going by on Main Street. I also expect trucks to go by on Main Street because it is a through thoroughfare. What I don't expect is the noise caused by some cars and motorcycles, speaking to your view. I agree that we have to be respectful of each other, but that's something else. It sounds as if many motorcycles and some automobiles have not just lost their mufflers, but have amplification on the part that makes the sound. It's not unusual, unfortunately, and it seems to me it's unnecessary. I discussed this with my auto mechanic, and he said that motorcycle riders want to be sure that the traffic around them knows they are there. Well, if they are so interested in their safety, then I think they would be wearing something other than shorts and short-sleeve shirts. You know, I think the noise is something else. Anyway, I found on the internet that there are devices that will not only pick up the number of decibels a vehicle is making, but also be able to snap the car and license plate number. I sent emails to Councilman Palumba of these sites that are selling these gadgets. Also, they've been tried in Canada and in Australia. I don't know if they've been tried any place in this country, and they were found to be successful in both the places I mentioned. So I hope that we'll be able to look into using such devices, as I realize it's not possible for the police to assign people to sit outside and listen to vehicles going by. So thank you very much for the time you've given me. Do you have any questions for me? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Marjorie. Just to reiterate, Marjorie did send me these references to, actually cities have these cameras, or these mechanisms up near the lights. And they do measure the sound. I didn't think that was possible to measure obviously they measure the sound, but they also take a picture, measure the sound and take a picture. So we will include in the minutes, I will send them to Councilor Feltner, reference to these websites. Yes?
I'll go there, even though I can speak louder than hello to you, Thomas, 67 Marion Road. I would like to say, Tony, I've had the same complaint from residents on Pleasant Street talking about the motorcycles and the cars being gunned. So I think there's some critical areas in town that if the police department goes to bat for this technology, you might want to examine that area as well. Otherwise, I think a police officer out there for a few weeks ticketing away might send the message home. And we are in contract negotiations.
I'll just add that we've had complaints about this on Mount Auburn Street. And also, I think because of all the construction going, that some trucks are doing what you call jake braking, where it's very loud, almost the full length of Mount Auburn from the square up to at least Common Street and beyond. So
What's that called?
Jesse might describe it better. It's called jake braking, where they like downshift and
Oh.
a way to,
Engine brake,
yeah.
whereby a truck will engage it to reduce the power via the motor rather than using the brakes. Typically, they use it to save braking. It is what the original intent is for.
I see.
It is very loud.
Okay. Okay. So, yes, Marjorie?
I would also like to add that some of these devices do not have to be stationary, like attached to a pole or something. Some of them can be set up and moved from place to place, so it's not like you have to buy a whole new number of them. You know, if you have one or two. Oh, did I do it?
Okay, so I'm going to read the last section of the minutes because this is where we're going to pick up. The committee began a discussion of noise standards, which is 95.06. There was a suggestion from the residents and committee members to modify A.1 and A.1 and A.2, including increasing the levels by 10 decibels and adding duration to Table 1. The committee agreed to amend A2 to read 10 decibels or more above the background noise level or 3 decibels above the background noise level for tonal sounds. So if you look at 95.06 is where we are. That's where we're going to pick up from. Again, you could either look at the red line version or you could look at the clean version. We're going to take it from noise ordinance, just to say that we already, Councilor Donato already changed A.2 to read as 10 dBAs or more above the background noise level or 3 dBA above the background noise level for tonal sounds. So that change is made. This is an opportunity for me to reference one of the suggested changes by Steve Kennedy in this particular section. He is suggesting that we take a look at the last words of A. It shall be unlawful for any person or any location within the town to create loud noise or to allow the creation of any noise on property owned, leased, occupied, or otherwise controlled by such person, which causes the sound level when measured on any other property to, and he's suggesting changing exceed the greater of and put in exceed either. So as a suggestion to make us whole with the state law. Is that correct, Steve?
Yeah, as well as the previous provisions of this draft.
Right. I apologize. Yes, the other provisions that were in the draft. So, of course. So I'm going to make a suggestion that we change the language of exceed to greater of to exceed either. Is that okay with the committee?
I guess the question I would have is what if the background noise is higher than the 65, what the decibel levels noted in the chart? So if the background noise is 75, then if we do exceed the greater of, then it eliminates option, the first option, right? Well, the second one is absolutes.
Right.
Whereas the first one is relative.
Right.
So if the background noise in a particular part of town on a particular day is higher, and that noise exceeds what is in the chart, wouldn't that be the point we start from, the higher noise level, the background noise? So let's say, and this is.
Well, because in that case, either would mean if we exceed the chart. So it exceeds if it exceeds either one.
Right, but if it exceeds the chart, the greater of exceeds the greater of.
So I'm taking out the greater of.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Counselor.
I guess my question would be, my understanding by doing that is to reduce noise pollution because otherwise the background noise you could start at a higher and higher levels. To your point, by saying exceed either, that helps us kind of keep a cap overall on the total decibels. Is that how you would interpret it, Anthony, or? I understand what you're saying.
right, yeah.
Just
So,
the
I mean,
result of changing the wording.
Right, it's limiting, and I guess the
Right.
question is whether or not.
Counselor?
So, just, so this, I think this is a good point. So just so you know, so if you look at column 1 in that chart, so when I was at Victory Field, they were setting the sound levels on Orchard Street at 11 o'clock in the morning. The background noise, the ambient noise, was 55 dB.
Vinny, could you speak in there a little bit, because I'm having trouble hearing you here.
The background noise was 55 dB. So if you were if you were making noise somehow, operating a piece of equipment, that was 10 dB louder than that, that would be measured at 65 dB. So of course, the problem with using the word either is if the background noise is already at the maximum, then any additional noise to that would be additive, and you would be, you actually could not make any noise because the ambient noise is already too loud. So that's the flaw in using either, because if the ambient noise, and I know that, we've chosen columns 1 and 2 is sort of the residential districts. Sorry, columns 1 and 3 is the residential districts. But there are, because of the way Watertown is constructed, not every street is quiet. So when I measured the ambient background noise at 11 o'clock in the morning on Marion Road, actually right in front of your house, the background noise was 50 dB. Just
problem I was thinking was the other way, which is say earlier in the morning, when the background is less than 50.
right. So I guess
It'd be fine because, somebody doing 40 would be fine. So I understand the complexity, but there must be a way to word this.
So this is, it becomes, and of course, so then you could go back, so you can go to, it's 11 o'clock at night, and you have a 45 dB, anything excess of 45 dB would be considered noise. If you use the greater, you could be making, if something was 10 dB louder than that, you could be creating up to 55 dB without creating a violation. So I guess it really, you may want to think about the unintended consequences of this.
Okay, why don't we do that? Why don't we put this on hold then, and let's move on to the rest of it.
Can I make one comment about that?
Sure.
So I'm not sure if we put on hold if we're going to come back or if it's going to go to the town attorney. I guess I would say that because partly why I'm not super concerned is that we have the duration as well, and the reality, I feel like a lot of the noise that we're trying to address or reduce is directly related to duration and type of noise, but that's my sense.
Okay, so I'd like us to move forward then on this. So Councilor Donato and myself met, and we were asked to include duration. So this is this is a new chart that we're putting out. So it includes, now remember, 1 and 3, as Councilor Pizzarelli mentioned, have to do with Zone 1, and 2 and 4 have to do with Zone 2. So I'd like some thoughts about it from the committee, if they feel like we have done a fairly good job of putting in the duration, and so. What, Marjorie?
I have a question. Are we talking about cumulative sound, or are we talking about the sound created by individual vehicles?
We're talking about individual sound.
Okay, then, if we're talking about background sound plus.
No, no, just
I
talk,
thought that's what the gentleman
no.
was saying. Okay, I misunderstood.
Okay, so are you referring to this now, to the chart? Yes. Well, let's work on the chart right now.
So I'm just questioning
like this to be 65.
That's a problem with adding durations, right?
This is industrial, yeah, this is fine then.
But I mean, for certain things, I guess, with, somebody's air conditioning equipment,
Oh, that's in
You know.
that's right.
yeah. I mean, I guess you could take a reading at 10 a.m. and come back and take a reading at
2 a.m., 12 a.m.
12 p.m. I mean, that's obviously the inherent problem with durations. I'm sure Captain Dupuy is going to tell you, we can't afford to have officers standing out there for that period of time, but
Can I say something about that?
Okay.
we were asked
good
to add
point.
duration, so we took
Hang on
a
a
stab
second.
at it.
Okay.
So, thank you. A note on the duration, though, I think also the police department has good judgment about, disruption of the peace. So you get a call and neighbors relay information about how long it's going on or when they heard it. It's kind of like parking enforcement, in my mind. The captain can speak to it more in detail, but yes, I agree. I don't imagine someone standing there for 2 hours, but there's going to be some professional judgment on some of these things when it comes to duration and the type of noise. And it may just be they can solve it through disturbing of the peace too, and not something that they necessarily have to measure.
So the concept here in the board, in this, is that the longer the noise, the lower the dB, is that, I just want to make sure you understand what we were trying to do. So the longer that the noise happens, then the lower the threshold, I'll use that word, lower the threshold, okay? Yes, Steve?
I always hesitate to say I think Vinnie's wrong, but I think in this case he is, because in the situation, because of what was just said, these are about sounds from a single source, not cumulative.
Right.
So if the background noise is, I would say whatever it is, 90, it isn't that, a new sound of, I guess, 70 would still be outlawed under either one. And so, because your concern was that somehow when I had a high background noise, it was doing something that we didn't mean to restrict, and I don't understand. So say the background noise is 60. What is saying either restrict that this doesn't restrict?
Got me.
I think if
Steve,
the relative background noise is at a higher level, and everybody's used to it's 65 dBAs.
Right, so
And
then-
everybody's used to
And
the
then the-
65 dBA.
The rule is 10 decibels above.
Right, so if we do either, then anything 10 decibels, and 65 is the max, then nothing can exceed 65. But if we're saying it's the greater of 65 or 10 dBs, so if something is 70.
You're suggesting there are situations where the background noise is so high, like 70, that you'll be fine if anyone comes along at what?
So
At
let-
80?
No, 10 decibels, so if the background is 65, you can go up to 75. Once it hits 76, it's noise pollution. So if we do either, under your scenario, let's say background noise is 65, and it goes up 1 decibel, that's noise pollution. So if 66,
So, yes. So now, say the background noise isn't there at all.
then it's,
The 65 guy doesn't make it.
if
The
that's,
66 guy violates.
right,
Now say the background noise is 65.
Right.
The 66 guy violates it.
under your
No,
scenario,
under yours, because because you want to say
the
I
grade,
see, sorry,
It's okay.
all right,
All right,
by next time I'll
all right. So we're going to stick with this now.
Venn diagram.
Hang on a second. All right, so let me just, hang on, Counselor. I'll be right with you. We're going to leave it as is. And we're focusing now on the, this is very important, obviously, this is the guts of it, right? Because this is where noise pollution is noted. So we got A1 and A2, and we have the chart. So Elodia and then Counselor Feltner.
Tony, with regard to the chart.
Yes.
I just have some suggestion and layout. Rather than these 1, 2, 3, 4s across the top, I would make another cell across the top and do zone 1 and then day and evening, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And then zone 2, day and evening, because I think it's easier to read. I find this a bit confusing. I'm happy to meet with whoever puts the chart together to block that out to show you what I mean, but I think that would be helpful.
Let me see. So you think that we should have zone 1,
Zone 1,
yeah,
above the
Up.
duration sound, and just block it out, zone 1, and then you'd have
A-
day and
day
evening,
and
for lack of a better word, right, and now you might say day and night, whatever, and then the same thing for zone 2. I just think it's easier to read it and comprehend, because I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
It's a little confusing. I think that would be helpful. And the only other thing I have to say, in looking at this, some of these are even higher than Somerville's dB levels.
No, they're all
For
less.
example, I know the residential, Anthony, in Somerville from 10 to 7 is 60 for less than 10 minutes, 50 for between 10 minutes and 2 hours, and 40 for in excess of 2 hours.
So
We have
chart 3
25.
on Somerville,
Pardon me?
the third column on Somerville, is that what you're?
Yes, that's residential from 7 to 10. They have 3 levels, because then they also do a 6 to 10, and then they have 7 to 6.
So the difference is the in excess of 2 hours, is that the only
Yes, I
difference?
see a difference there, I see a difference in the other two. Zone 2 from 10 to 2, from the 10 to 7 is different as well.
I think,
But also, some of them are lower than Somerville's.
A little bit, well, let's see. No,
Yes.
not really.
Yeah.
oh, yeah, because we made a,
75 drops to 65, 70 drops to 60, 60 drops to
To
55 in our
Okay,
range.
well, I'm looking at, for reader.
I know, it doesn't match up exactly.
No, but, right, but I think that's why I'm confused between day and evening. I think if we clean that, it'd be easier, and then you can review it one more time.
okay. You having trouble with that?
No, yeah, I mean, I would
Okay.
help, let's
Hang on
help.
a second, I forgot that,
Putting the chart
That's all
together.
I wanted to make.
I
Not
forgot
yet.
to ask, I forgot to go to Counselor Feltner.
Just wanted to state that my understanding too of background noise and how you measure this, that you take more than one reading to establish a background noise. So that may alleviate some of the concerns of perception of how we're measuring that Steve and Vinnie or Anthony were talking about. But the other thing too is just remember that the perception, what the health director tells them, I'm not going to get this right, but the perceived noise is more than twice what the level is, the intensity to the human ear with these increases. So I think the numbers are important, and how you define the background noise and take these measurements is important. I can tell you that I took some readings at Victory Field on July 4th, and it never got very high. And that is partly, I think, again, because of the type of noise. You know, children laugh, it comes and goes. It's not, so that's partly why I'm glad that you put the duration in here. And, you know, so here we are at Victory Field with hundreds of people. And so some of this, the concern about getting exact measurements and comparing to background noise, I think, situations when we were talking about parks is maybe a little overblown.
Okay,
That's my opinion.
do any other counselors have anything on this chart?
I would just thank Elodia for the clarification. I think it is really confusing to go 1, 2, 1, 2, and I appreciate that comment.
Okay, and, yes. On the chart, right? Or is that what we're working on? Okay,
Well,
or the A and B?
so, forgive me if this is something that's really clear to you guys, it's not really clear to me. I don't speak decibels. So if, number one, if it would well, maybe we'll skip this part. Actually, the real question I wanted to ask is, I'm interested that the standards are different for Somerville and Watertown, and I'm wondering, aren't there published, in particularly when we're talking about tonal levels, aren't there published values in terms of what's damaging long-term to human health? What tends to be bad for you in terms of a tonal level? I mean, aren't there charts published by?
World Health Organization.
Yeah, for instance.
I mean, I think for the most part, if you look at, and I understand it's not an apples-to-apples comparison because the chart is different, and I think that when Tony and I put the chart together, we understood, we didn't know how else to do it, so this was the best we could do, so I'm happy for Elodia's, help on that. But if you look at our levels, the vast majority of them are actually lower than
Right.
Somerville's.
But is that based on?
I think it's based on input that we've received over these meetings for the last 2 years, that noise is a concern and, people want lower levels. So when Tony and I sat down and looked at the Somerville chart, based on what we had been hearing here, these seemed high. So we
Kind of
adjusted them
down.
down.
And we were, we also have this,
I was going to tell her.
that's a part of Somerville's gave us this breakdown of when hearing is damaged and when it isn't damaged and for how long. And so we were looking at that also when we tried to come up with these numbers. So I thought we kind of,
Well, we also have an appendix. We have an appendix that lists things.
right.
Right,
Oh,
in
it
this
is-
document.
Maybe we
I was
did put it
gonna-
in.
Yeah,
We
we
should
don't have
know.
the Somerville thing, but we have this isn't it?
At the very end,
Oh, right,
The
the
last
guide to
page.
noise intensity, right,
the last page.
right.
of
Thank
the-
you. Is there? Okay. So, Counselor, you have something on the chart?
Just the heading that's just above the chart.
Yeah,
It says, paragraph A, it's unlawful for any person. The way this is currently written, for any person, any location within the town to create a loud noise or allow the creation of any noise, comma, on property owned, leased, or occupied or otherwise controlled by such person. So the way that's currently written, it means that you could be standing on the sidewalk and make all the noise you want, and this doesn't apply to you. Because the sidewalk is not owned, leased, occupied, or otherwise controlled by such person. So I think, see where it says, this is the classic Oxford comma conundrum. There's an extra comma there. See, what it really should say is, it shall be unlawful for any, there's two tests here. For any person at any location within the town to one, create any loud noise, or two, to allow the creation of any noise, minus the comma, on property owned, leased, occupied, or otherwise controlled by such a person. So for example, if you own a house and there's an air conditioner that's making loud noise, you're not creating the noise, but you own a property that is allowed to create the noise, because that's under your control. So I really think by having that comma after the noise, it really creates one condition versus, I think there's two separate conditions there that you want to do.
So just delete the comma.
Or if you wanted to be clear, because somebody who may be trying to enforce this, 5 years down the road may say, no, that's not what it says. It shall be unlawful for any person.
At any location.
So
within
either
the
you want to separate them, one or two, within the town to, one, create any loud noise, or two, to allow the creation of any noise on property owned, leased, occupied, or otherwise controlled by such person, right? Because those are the two separate
I don't know that you need,
tests.
Counselor, thank you. Counselor Folkoff. In reference to the suggestion.
right, this is going to be really obnoxious, but it's not an Oxford
No,
comma.
no, you're right. But I said it was like the Oxford comma.
Okay,
So just for clarification, just so I can make sure as I go along with this, within the town to, one, create any loud noise, or two,
allow the creation.
Allow the creation, so.
and then are we deleting your,
No, you could, no,
Just the
and I would delete the
comma
comma after the
after
word
noise.
noise.
Word noise.
So, and then it's
All
really
right.
clear.
I'm not,
Mark Rich will tell you that, like,
Yeah.
putting bullets is really clear to separate things out. to make it clear that they're separate things, not one thing.
Okay, great, thank you, Counselor.
Okay, and I have another question once we get down to B, but
Yep, we'll get down there. Okay, so, folks, we're gonna move forward if I don't, on these. We're keeping these decimals, and we're lowering it as it gets longer. And we will, after we talk with Elodia, redesign the chart. But the bottom line is that we're gonna move with these, okay? Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the next part of this. And this has to do with some specific noises and some specific times, okay? So B, notwithstanding the provisions of what we just talked about, 9503 and 9506A. Let me just make sure I got 9503 in my head, okay? Audible devices or activities resulting in, this shall be limited as follows. So, okay, so the first one has to do with noise construction or demolition. So we're saying that that is permitted between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. on the weekdays and between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. on Saturdays, provided that the cumulative noise level of all construction and demolition on the site at any one time shall not exceed 90 dBAs. Further, no individual piece of equipment shall exceed a maximum noise level of 90 dBAs. However, if the noise barriers are used to effectively shield nearby areas from the condition of noise pollution, the following devices shall be exempt from maximum noise level: jackhammers, pavers, pilers, and rock drawers. So just looking at this, we want Elodia first.
Tony, you have nothing here about Sundays and state and federal holidays, which you do have in other sections.
All
So
right.
I think you'd probably like to parallel what you're doing.
Further down? Okay.
Well, just where you have
I mean,
on Saturdays.
yes.
But then you do, yes, in another area, you do refer to weekends and legal holidays.
Okay.
So I'm just asking, are you going to say the same thing? Are those hours consistent for weekends and legal holidays?
I think, sorry, I just turned this on. I think D, if you go down 1, 2, 3, 4, then the new D, I think covers that.
Yeah, so that's why.
You say it everywhere else, Anthony, where you're writing weekends and legal holidays, so I just think it always helps to.
Just include, just for emphasis, just include it.
Again, for emphasis, so just
No, but
rather
it's
than say
different.
Saturdays, say on weekends and legal.
D is a different
Hang
thing.
on a second, just please. We got that, I got it. So Counselor Falkoff, go ahead.
Well, D is not saying weekends and holidays are the same. D is saying we have different rules for Sundays and holidays.
Just asking, because it's different, you have nothing about Sundays and holidays in this first section.
I see.
that Tony is referring to.
Okay,
So
so
I'm
let's see, let's see if we can put in the Sundays and holidays so that it is the same, legal holidays. So it's the same with the other.
So just to be clear, and this goes back, thank you, for me. Go back, so I think the part, if you go back to the first page where it says B, I think you have this sort of backwards, where it says, notwithstanding, blah, blah, blah.
Where are you? We don't know where you are.
Page 5, the heading paragraph.
Okay.
Notwithstanding provisions above, audible devices or activities resulting in a condition of noise pollution shall be, I think should say shall be allowed as follows. It's not limiting, because that's, I think, causing the confusion with Melodia. So number 1 here, noise for construction is only allowed weekdays and Saturdays. It's not allowed on Sundays and holidays. So that's why it doesn't say in paragraph 1, Sundays and holidays.
I apologize, I'm having trouble seeing where you are on.
I think
Right underneath the chart.
it depends on what copy. It's actually B.
B, paragraph B.
Okay, notwithstanding the provisions, blah, 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 shall be limited as follows,
And-
okay.
But the problem is the bullets 1 through 4 that follow that are not talking about limiting, it's talking about allowing. So So it really, that word limited should be changed to allowed. Then it makes sense that number one says noise is only allowed on
Good call.
weekdays and Saturdays. It doesn't mention Sundays and holidays because that exemption is not allowed. So that's why I think the confusion, so I think if you go back and change that word in the
Limited,
heading
yeah.
to allowed, then it makes sense.
Good call.
Sorry.
Okay, all right, we can make, yep, go ahead.
I think he's right.
Are we on this, though, right? Is that what
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
talking?
yeah.
We're only on one so far. We're only on one. We're going to go through it.
I just wanted to say that it's confusing. You're talking about demolition and construction in number 1.
Yes.
And then you're also talking about it in D. No, wait a minute. You're talking, on the next page is when you talk about the Sundays, right?
Yeah.
So maybe they should be closer together?
No,
It has to be at the end of everything.
one's allowed and one's what's prohibited.
Oh. All right, okay, I guess, all right.
I think Mr. Martin has that comment.
I'm sorry, Mr. Martin.
I just have a question. The maximum of 90.
Yes, you're given your background. Help us.
Well, I just think that certain things like the stuff that was going on over at Salisbury Road, that's on the ground level, so there's ways to watch that sound. But if you're doing pile driving, I don't know how much we have to do in town, knowing the soils we have, but you never know. The pile driving here is up in the air at the top of the crane, he's driving the sheets down. That can be quite loud, and it really, trust me, when I got from trying to shield those, it becomes a safety hazard, because the pile driver can't see the focus.
That-
90 might be tight for them, so I guess if you had a way to provide an exemption, we have an exception. Read the next sentence. Okay,
Okay? Counselor?
Yeah, well, I'm glad, yeah, I'm glad Mr. Martin mentioned that, because I don't know what that means to, I don't know what it means to effectively shield nearby areas, and maybe, Mr. Martin, you're the person who can answer that best, or Mr. Myatt, but I have no idea what you do to effectively shield nearby areas.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Well, it says, if the noise barriers are used to effectively shield nearby areas from the condition of noise, jackhammers, pavement breakers, pile drivers, rod pulls are exempt. Well, that kind.
So, and how do you, what is,
What is a shield?
technologically, what does that mean? How do you shield?
So when you drive a pile, you make noise. How do there's really no water pile that's 30 feet. You're over the edge 30 feet, that's the source generating the noise, the top. So it's not down by the ground. So it's harder to, really. I think I'm pretty loud. It's a source that's high in the air, you can't block it. There's no mechanisms like hay bales or a fence with blankets on it to block the noise, whereas with a rock hammer or how you excavate rock by pounding on it, you can put up noise barriers so they'll absorb some of the noise, but you can't do it with a whip, yeah. So that was my point, and I guess Vinnie says we got covered. Because I think you generated in the order of 120 decibels when you're up that high.
Shielded.
I love the way you say when you use a pile driver. Right,
Large construction, we don't-
whenever I do.
Oh, yeah, you do it all the time. But it's just for large construction projects, and I don't know that we have the right soils, but, you know, if we had some peat somewhere in town that I don't know about, you might need something. I don't think we do.
Okay. So we're
We're not going to the wetlands.
I want to make sure we're on it, trying to stick to this. So are there any other changes or suggestions? So far, let me just say what we've done. On the B, notwithstanding, we've changed the word allowed, limited to allowed. So that means that construction on demolition and the improvement of your home is allowed between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. on weekdays. So people can start banging at 7 a.m. and stop banging at 7 p.m. And then on Saturdays, they can bang from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's what we're saying in this piece. So is everybody okay with that?
Question.
Yes.
there's a particular category of construction noise that doesn't seem to be covered in this section, and it needs to be. And I speak very feelingly about this because it's been going on for weeks behind our house.
Which
and
is?
that is generators. For some reason I cannot understand, for weeks, starting at 7 a.m., not every day, but many days, they turn on a generator and it goes for hours, and it's very loud and very annoying. That really should be included in this category of construction noise.
But wouldn't that fall within?
allow it.
Because it's associated with construction, so wouldn't that fall within that category? It's any noise
Well,
associated.
there's two things about this. Number one, it's a tonal noise, so I think the level probably ought to, a generator is not too difficult to provide some sound damping for. It is a ground level machine, and they could put some kind of a barrier to protect the neighborhood from that kind of noise. And it is a tonal noise, so the level of aggravation it's a little different, I think, than it's something intermittent. So I would recommend that some language be put in about generators that might apply a lower noise, and specifically, I think maybe generators should be included because they seem to not be mentioned at all.
Councilors?
Well, I have a question, but I'm
On the
happy to-
generators first.
Oh, on the generator, no.
Yes. On the generators? Yes. Okay.
So at least some of the generators are.
You need a microphone.
You got to be in front.
Grab one for over
Here.
because it's much better when you just pass it.
Elodia.
Oh, thank you, Anthony.
I don't know which generators you're referring to. Some of them, at least, for example, right near the bicycle path behind, parallel to Arsenal, those aren't construction equipment. They come on at 7 a.m. and they're at least 90 to 100 decibels. They're sporadic. Okay, so it's in addition, so there may be two different cases of actual construction
Just
equipment.
think it's
and then-
covered under here.
I think, this is a question, if there is a generator operating a building, that would not be construction equipment, is that accurate?
I would think it would be covered,
Right, but I think it would be covered under the general,
the chart.
right.
Yes.
Tony, I think what Libby is probably talking about is the compressor noise, like you'd have it ongoing for a nail gun or things like that. That's what it sounds like, Lib. I can come by and see, but.
I'm not sure what it is, but it's something that goes on.
And it stays on, yes, on and on and on.
Right near our property line, and it invades our house.
Wouldn't that be,
Maybe we'll have a tour of your property,
wouldn't
Libby.
that be covered?
Under table 1.
That'd be
Wouldn't that be covered on the table,
Yeah, you don't want it in the other thing, you want it up here.
Right, because then it would be subject to the exemption.
It looks as though, it appears as though construction noise is excluded from the table, the way it's written, it's a separate section.
Right, so you would want to make the argument that the generator is not construction, and then therefore it's subject to the table.
To say it is construction and needs to be explicitly mentioned, and maybe the noise level should be lower than for other kinds of construction equipment, possibly since it's a total noise with long duration.
This is an exemption, though. So if we group it in, as long as it doesn't exceed that 90 decibels, it's not noise pollution. So I think you would want the generator to fall outside of this exception. Therefore, it would be covered by either the chart or the 10 decibels above background noise.
As long as it's clear, that, as long as somebody interpreting this down the road doesn't say, well, it's construction noise, so it's not a more than 90 dB.
I see your point.
I just find it's probably a compressor,
It is it is a compressor. That's what powers things.
using in my house for the past month. It goes on, it's loud, charges up, and then, bang, and then turns off, and turns on.
Mike Finney.
So I'd be cautioned not to include compressors for construction. That is construction equipment and it is exempt. And it would create quite a problem. Nobody would be able to have the house used if that were to be adopted. So I would caution
Counselor?
I just want to say, I know this had been decided by a vote at an earlier meeting, but I just want to and I think at that time Kenny and I were opposed to the change in time. I just want to reiterate the fact that I think on weekends, 10 a.m. start time is just too late. I think it would be really hard for, whether it falls into this or the landscaping, which comes later. I think it would be very hard to tell certain trades that on weekends they can't, or Saturdays, they can't begin until 10 a.m. So I would prefer to see that moved earlier, but again, I know this was a vote at an earlier meeting, so I'm not sure if anybody would entertain that.
Right. Counselor?
That was actually my question is, I thought we were going to hear a little more from staff about the expectation of the standards of the industry. I do agree that I'm concerned with it starting at 10 if we hear every other town is allowing an earlier time, but I know that not the planning staff couldn't be here tonight, but.
But maybe Captain Dupuy, who I would imagine
Yes.
is responsible for
Maybe
some of
he-
these.
Go ahead.
No, I agree with both of these. I think 10 o'clock start on a Saturday is, it's just unrealistic. I don't know any other towns around here that have such a late start for, construction at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I think it's going to create some problems, and it might create some problems of enforcement, because it's going to be a lot, everybody starts, it's like, everybody starts around 8 o'clock on a Saturday, or even earlier. So I just think 10 o'clock on a Saturday anyways is unrealistic.
I just wanted to say, Tony, that I want to back Lisa up in that she did request this information from town management. We've never gotten it. Some of us felt that hour was too late, Ray, for the weekend. And I don't think it should be any earlier than 8 o'clock, quite frankly, because, but, many of us would say 9 o'clock would be ideal, quite frankly, with everything that's going on. But we never got the information from town management. Again, it's a hole in our system that we have. So I could see that, to be fair and go somewhere in the middle, I could see going to 9, Ray. I agree with you, 10 is late for the trades. But then again, I don't know that many individual tradespeople that would be out there on a Saturday, but that's a different story.
Well, does Mr. Maya perhaps have an opinion from a DPW perspective, or no? I don't mean to put you on the spot, I just know that we're trying to get through this
No,
section.
that would be, I would just be speaking on behalf specifically for the Department of Public Works, so I wouldn't leave the opinions on that realm to others.
Okay.
Okay, so let's make, I think it, we could continue going back to the town, but I think we have a sense, I'm going to say that we have a sense from our own experience, and when people start to work. So maybe 10 o'clock seems to be general consensus that 10 o'clock is too late. So I'm going to make a motion that we change this to 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday. Do I have any second on that?
Well, second for discussion,
Okay.
I wonder if 8 to 5 is more realistic. 6 seems late on Saturday, and 9 seems late for tradesmen to get started.
Okay, other folks, please.
I would concur with that, but again, I would
Okay, so,
love to hear from professionals.
all right, so you don't want to try to make a decision today
Oh,
on this?
no,
I think maybe it could be a placeholder like we have for either. Or,
No, either's been resolved.
Either's
No
been
longer have
settled.
that.
oh, okay, I didn't get that in the record, thank you. Okay.
Okay, so I'm making a motion, that's fine, Dick.
Well, I guess,
I'm making a motion, and does anybody want to, doesn't second it, there's no second for the motion, that's fine. Someone want to make another motion?
I agree with Counselor Falcoff, so I would make a motion that we change those hours from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
No.
Discussion.
Sorry, discussion, sorry, I'm sorry. Apologize, I didn't see you.
So it might be a little bit late for them to start at 9, although when my house was under construction, they came at 9 or 10 on Saturdays. They did come later on Saturdays. But we also, I mean, remember, I know that we need to make it doable for people to work. I get that we have to, but we also need to make it doable for people to live in Watertown. So I actually think 9 is a good compromise. I think 9 a.m. is a good compromise. 10 a.m. I would prefer. Yeah, I'd love it if it was 10 a.m. I get it that people need to work, but I think 9 a.m. is fine.
Okay?
I just want to speak up for the late sleepers in the world. I think 9 seems reasonable to me for weekends.
So we could go 9 to 5. Yep. That would be an interesting
I'll
concept.
second that.
9
Gives
to
you an
5.
8-hour day.
A nice 8-hour day, and,
Plenty of time for cocktails at 5.
okay.
Can-
So,
This doesn't keep people from working at 8 o'clock, it keeps them just from making noise.
Right.
So they can do they can do a lot of work without
that's true.
violating the noise.
That's true. I mean, if they're raking or they're
Painting.
landscaping
Yeah.
or doing something, painting or something, you're right. It doesn't stop people from working. It
takes
stops them
a while
from
to get
making
set up
noise.
anyway.
Yes?
Do these times apply to, I have a loud voice, but thank you.
Can you just
Do
state your
these-
name for the record, the recording, please?
Paula
Thanks.
Halpin, Walnut Street. Do these times apply to noise zone 1 and noise zone 2?
Nice what, ma'am?
Because my landscapers are over there every Saturday not mine, excuse me, I don't have any. The neighbors across the street landscapers are there every Saturday at 7.
Well, this would apply.
This would apply, yes.
And who do I call? We haven't passed it yet. Okay. Great. I look forward to it.
All right, give me the mic back. There you go, Paula, just so I can have it in case somebody else needs it. This is allowed. You're misreading again, folks.
We got it backwards again. These are the exemptions, so first of all, paragraph 1 does not apply to landscapers, it applies to construction.
Correct.
Number 2, this is an exemption to what is shown in the table in section A. So it's not like,
Right, but on a Saturday, if the start time is 8 a.m., and on a Saturday, those landscapers would be violating the noise ordinance.
this is, no.
This
because
is for
paragraph 1 is
construction.
not
I
landscaping.
understand, but
I'm sorry, what she's saying, though, yes, yes.
I understand we were jumping a little ahead, but to
And
answer,
landscaping, you have to
Okay,
wait on
all
landscaping.
right, we'll come back to the landscaping.
Construction's coming to my neighborhood, too.
We'll come back to the landscaping, we will.
Okay,
Yes,
Thank you.
yes.
So I just want to iterate that the way I read this paragraph B1, it does seem to me as though it's saying, okay, so I'm just going to read it. Notwithstanding the provisions above, audible devices or activities resulting in a condition of noise pollution shall be allowed. Noise associated with construction or demolition and home improvement work undertaken by a commercial enterprise is permitted between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., et cetera, et cetera, provided that the cumulative noise of all construction and demolition on one site at any one time shall not exceed 90 dBA. I'd really like to emphasize that the sound of that compressor, generator, whatever it is incredibly intrusive, and I don't think it should be allowed. I think it needs to be shielded from the neighborhood somehow, and 90 dBA for a long-term sound seems really excessive to me.
So do we have no duration caps on the exemption? Okay, clarify. But we're kind of missing Kate Coyne.
Oh,
I'd just like to say, Lisa, that at 80 dBA, that's a very annoying level of sound, if you go back to those charts.
Kate?
Coyne, Watertown. Can you guys hear me okay?
No.
No, okay.
No?
That
Okay,
mic
I'm
is-
speaking right into the microphone.
I know, it's
right.
terrible.
All right. At any rate, yeah, I think that, that we need to get the information in order to decide.
Right.
I mean, everyone that works on my house comes at 8 o'clock, especially roofers. though you don't get that done very often, hopefully. I did want to revisit, sorry, Leo, the last part. I read it quite differently. However, if noise barriers are used to effectively shield nearby areas from a condition of noise pollution, then the following devices shall be exempt from the maximum noise level. So if you don't have a shield, like on that power driver that he was talking about, which he said you can't shield because of safety concerns, then that would not be allowed, okay?
right.
So that might be an issue.
It would not be allowed only if it exceeded the 90 decibels.
Right, and he's saying that it will definitely exceed it. Okay. Really? Okay. All right, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. Thank you.
Oh, you got more?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me speak to this question of whether we should consult contractors and when they start. We are trying to craft an ordinance that deals with the fact that there is an increased amount of noise in Watertown. To be very honest, I don't need to hear from industry to tell me they start at 7 o'clock, because I wouldn't support a start at 7 o'clock. That's not what we're about here, or at least that's not what I'm about here. They say they could start at 6 o'clock. Well, fine, you can't make noise until 8. You want to start at 5 o'clock, you start at 5 o'clock. You want to seed the lawn, you want to paint the thing, you go right ahead. But don't turn on your blowers and don't turn on your lawnmowers until 8 o'clock. So I'm not really interested in determining what the standard is, because the standard to me can be all over the place. You know, I know contractors who take Saturday as a little lighter than they take Monday through Friday. And they kind of start a little later. And they give themselves and their workers a little bit of a break. And there are other people who don't. 7 o'clock, 7 days a week, 6 days a week. So I'm not supporting any further need to gather information. We've been gathering information for the last 2 years.
Tony?
I think we would like to support a proposal that puts this at 9 to 5.
9 to 5.
9 to 5.
On Saturday, 9 to 5 on Saturday. Yes, Counselor, I got you.
Okay. I couldn't tell if you could see me. I'm so small. Okay, so we voted on 9 to 5.
No, we haven't voted. No, we haven't
didn't
voted on
vote.
anything.
Oh, I thought we voted.
No,
Okay.
if you have something to,
Yes, I have something else to say.
Second it, though.
Well, I'll withdraw my motion, which was the 9, well, I said 8 to 5.
Yeah.
And there doesn't seem to be support for that, so I'll withdraw that.
Well, I maybe have a comment to make after we take that vote.
okay, all in favor of changing this from 9 a.m. to 5?
I'm sorry, if you want to call it, that's fine. I was going to make one more comment about
Okay.
standards.
Go right ahead.
When you said the standards are all over the place, there's no standards, I thought we were talking about standards that are used, whether it's Somerville, Newton, what other communities
They have 9:30.
nearby when they start. Maybe we don't like those standards, but I was just saying, where's the information? So I guess I'm going to vote present because I don't feel like I can make an informed vote right now.
Okay.
As much as we might want to say 10 a.m., I mean,
All right,
I'd like to have
Counsel?
a realistic balance.
So, I call the question, Counselor. Is there, okay, so we have a second, Counselor Donato. Here, we're missing Counselor Woodland's expertise and.
Yeah, and that's why I don't want to get too into Robert's Rules of Civil Procedure.
He's going to vote no on the ordinance anyway.
Okay, all those in favor?
So, all right, I'm
Let's just
confused now.
clarify what we're voting.
We're voting on changing the language in B1 to say that on Saturdays, instead of saying 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., we're saying 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. for making noise.
Could I just make
Yes.
just a comment? I'm going to support that because I think it's better than what's there, but ultimately, I do think 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. is better, but I will support that.
Thank you for that, I appreciate all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all right, so now, We're
So
gonna-
that's a no from Anthony?
No, I voted, I voted for it.
You voted yes. Okay, I have, I'm taking minutes.
Right, it's very
Thank
hard.
you.
We don't have a minute taker, so
Yes, we do.
Lisa's
Okay.
got the
So
challenge.
I have one more question about this section, even though I would love to move on, which is, to Libby's point, it would be nice if we could get some information about how many decibels those compressors are, so we could figure out if your point made sense or not. And I don't,
Anybody here could do that? Is there, yes?
I'm very happy to bring over the sound meters that I have on my phone, which are very efficient. You can all download them for free, or you can buy a super duper one for $4.99. But that's pretty good level to figure out what's going on.
that might be nice to just have that information for our next meeting.
Actually, you can buy them
So
for about
we're
50,
gonna
about
have
50 bucks.
Counselor- we have- as we are, the council is cooperating with the community here, and we're going to pull on the community's expertise to go check out on that, as well as to use her help, Elodia, to use her help on the chart. So I'm moving on to 2.
Can I ask a question about 1?
Yes.
I know everyone wants to move on.
Yeah.
Can someone say, what does it mean at any one time? It says, demolition on one site at any one time shall not exceed.
Just one instant.
One
So if
incident.
one goes just one blast
Yeah.
for a second, okay.
That's what it says.
Again,
Okay.
obviously, we run into enforcement
Measurement
problems.
issue, yes.
but-
there are
But the contractors are on notice that that's our
Right.
max.
Are we feeling good? All right, let's move on to number 2. Noise associated with loading and, should be a breeze. Loading and unloading, delivery trucks, vehicles idling is permitted between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. on weekdays and in between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. on weekends and holidays. Now, let's open this up because, loading and unloading vehicles, delivery trucks, yes.
My question, Tony, is I remember this was a huge issue with the CVS over in Coolidge Square, and I apologize, I don't remember what the hours, are those the correct hours, Susan?
I don't know what, if I may,
I think those hours were determined by the permit, and
I-
therefore, they were,
I believe
Okay,
it
the
goes till
source-
10 p.m.
Our source are,
I think the permit there was loading was done after hours, 10 to 11 p.m.
that's what I'm saying, it was a pretty late hour, and
My-
that's why I'm asking about this.
My memory was that they could do loading up until 10 p.m.
Up until 10 p.m. yeah.
Yes.
So this would contradict that.
So they would have to change their
but,
practices.
Okay, just ask, I'm just,
we could set a bar, we could
Yes.
set a standard. If if the planning board or the ZBA decide that they want to change that, that's up to them and their permitting. We're setting a bar, and
I'm just trying to clarify, Tony, because I also believe there was some discussion about the type of trucks that were coming in, et cetera. And correct me if I'm wrong, Vinnie, but that was a very tough discussion and complicated, so,
So I would just point out that paragraph 2 exempts them from the noise ordinance. They can make as much noise as they want, literally as much noise as they want between 7 a.m. and 8
Right.
p.m. on weekdays. That does not stop them from making deliveries at midnight as long as they comply with paragraph A.
well,
So all that means is if you're going to be making deliveries at midnight, you can make it, but you need to,
Be quiet.
honor the noise levels that are listed on the table
okay.
under section A. So I think that is, one outweighs the other, but if you're delivering
Whatever, let it go.
loads of pipe
But I think we
and,
should change
they're banging on a forklift and it's making 100 dB of noise as they take them off the truck, you can do that during the day. You
Right,
can't do it at 10 o'clock at night. If you want to take a hand truck taking boxes off a truck and bringing it to CVS, that's not going to really make any noise.
I just wanted to clarify, given
So
other
I think
issues.
I think Tony and Anthony, I think that's probably, paragraph 2 is probably okay, and,
And I think
impacting the local businesses.
Sure, and I also think to Elodia's point about special permits, I mean, the zoning or planning board might enforce a
Right.
stricter. And if
Correct.
if it's part of their special permit that's a stricter period of time than this, then that would supersede the ordinance.
Okay, thank you, Anthony.
Yes, Counselor?
Which one, me?
You, I'm sorry, we got two hands over there?
You first.
You go
I
ahead,
think I'll
Lisa.
do this. Oh, I was just going to say that I'd like to take vehicle idling out of there because by state law, there's a time limit on there. There are exceptions for refrigeration and very particular needs, but I don't want idling included as permitted.
That's true. Okay,
So otherwise,
okay, let's hold on that for a second and then ask Counselor Falco.
So
I
are you
wondered-
just saying then to have unloading deliveries and take out the whole thing, trucking?
no, just idling.
Okay, thank you. I'm just trying to follow.
I wondered if on this paragraph also we'd like to change 10 to 6 to 9 to 5. Well, that really,
Yeah.
the hobgoblin of little minds.
Two things. One, I think Susan makes a good point. If it's consistent, it's probably easier also on the enforcement side of things. I'm a little confused about Lisa's comment because,
There's a 5-minute limit because of vehicle emissions. Air
right, but
pollution.
our noise ordinance isn't trying to regulate the amount of time they can idle. It's regulating noise associated with idling.
But I don't think we need it to have idling in there at all. To me, it makes it sound like, oh, well, you know,
Well, I guess the problem, if
clarity.
as the truck is idling, as they're unloading, if it exceeds the noise ordinance and we remove this exception, then it's noise pollution, right?
but the idling is part of the delivery.
So if you have a refrigerated truck making a delivery and it has
Right.
a refrigeration unit on it that's
gotta
diesel
idle.
powered, you know, when the truck is parked, that thing is still running because that's, so that's, I would think that the reasonable person would say that the idling of the vehicle noise is associated with loading and unloading, whether it's stated or not. But just
Because
understand that if you have, you know, certain trucks are required to continue to run the engine to power the equipment to load it and unload it, so. And the state law is really clear, it's 5 minutes unless the engine power is required to power the vehicle. It's like a fire truck with a pump. You need to run the engine to run the pump, to pump the water. You can't say to the fire department, you know, you've been running that truck for 5 minutes, turn it off, because the motor is used to power the pump to operate the equipment, so.
No, and I understand that there is such a state law, but
So that's what I'm saying.
it's
yeah,
dealing with idling, specifically idling. So what if there was a truck doing unloading that idles for 4 minutes and it exceeds if we take idling out and it exceeds whatever, either 1 or 2, then it's noise pollution.
But is the truck going to really sit there and idle for 4 minutes and not be making a delivery?
guess
I mean, people do idle in front of my house on their phones, you know, for their lunch hour, which is illegal, but.
I guess my question is, if the state law regulates idling for a completely different purpose, I don't understand why we would remove it from the noise ordinance.
Okay. Are you talking about?
Idling is
If I could
almost,
add to that. Sorry, go ahead.
idling is almost never going to exceed 70 decibels.
Okay. Go ahead, Counselor.
Well,
It's kind of a
yeah,
moot point.
Right. That's what I was going to say, and
I'm just putting it somewhere.
there's confusion around idling. I mean, because we also have these dog grooming that will come to your house and, you know, they leave things, they could be there for an hour and because they need the power for their equipment, and that would be exempt by state law, so. I'm just trying to be clear with our words, as other people have mentioned. If people don't like it, it's fine, but to me, to put that in there, because we're talking about exemptions, I'd rather not have it in there.
This is Paula Halpin. I appreciate the discussion about idling. There's a lot of idling in my neighborhood, and when it goes on all night long, it's very disturbing.
Okay. Counselors, the other two counselors have some thoughts on idling?
I hate idling.
Let's vote on that.
I think we should leave it in.
Okay.
I don't see any reason not to leave it in. If the idling makes a certain amount of noise, then it's only permitted during a certain period. If they make the noise outside that period, and then it has to abide by A or B in the first section. So I don't see any reason to remove it, unless you want to make a motion, Counselor.
Just convince me again why we have it in there. Why we're saying yes, you can idle between 7 and 8? As long as it's 4 minutes long? I mean, I'm not sure why we have it in there.
There's a state.
Maybe I just need something to drink. I don't know.
I think we all do.
Just hang on. Just hang on. We're doing well. We're going to take that one and we're going to hold it. Okay, unless you make a motion, we're going to leave it in. So, Counselor.
Well, I already made a motion to take it
I
out.
went out to the.
And we said we were holding it.
That's right. So, no, you made a motion. Anybody want to second the motion? There's no second on the motion, so we're leaving it in. There's a motion to move this from the weekends and the holidays. What did you say, Counselor?
Well, on weekends and legal holidays, change the hours from 10 to 6 to 9 to 5.
9 to 5.
I'll second that.
So up for discussion? All discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Anybody abstaining? Great. Let's move on to 3. Noise associated with power equipment, ground maintenance equipment used by residents or commercial enterprises such as lawnmowers, power sources is permitted between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. on the weekdays and in between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. on the weekends and holidays, provided that the cumulative noise of all work on one site or on the at any one time does not exceed 80 dBAs. No individual piece of equipment can exceed 80 dBAs. So, speaking to this one, do we have any comments? Yes, sir. You could just use the thing there. It's easy, so you don't have to get up.
You'd save me so much walking. This is clearly something that I care a lot about.
Yes.
I think it's also something that a lot of towns care a lot about. And I think that if we deleted 3 and 4 from the exemptions, in other words, not allow exceptions for these activities, both people who own homeowners could easily take care of their homes, their lawns and so on, and commercial landscapers could easily take care of their commercial landscaping. And so my preference would be to simply remove these exemptions on 3 and 4. I've studied this fairly carefully, and it's also something that bothers me a lot because it's violated a lot. If that is something that is not at all agreed to, which I think it should be, because I do think it fosters good neighborliness. It forces neighbors to have conversations with their neighbors. If they're allowed to do something but it still bothers the neighbors, they'll have to talk to them about it. I think that's a good thing in Watertown. And if they operate equipment, by the way, today there's tremendous opportunities and alternatives for electric power equipment, commercial and domestic, that are very, very quiet. I have them. But if that's unacceptable, certainly 80 decibels is not acceptable. To be clear about what 80 decibels is, It's a diesel train running at 45 miles an hour, 100 feet away. It's 2 times. 80 decibels is not 10 decibels more than 70. It's 2 times the noise of 70. And in all municipalities around the United States, 70 decibels is considered to be, and it's not exact at all, but it's a rough cutoff point between what's really annoying and what isn't. And what we're allowing is twice what the human ear experiences as annoying. So that's a sort of a fallback position, is put this down to 70. And third, I don't see any reason to not make exemptions before 8 o'clock in the morning. I understand that some people want to mow their lawns at 7 o'clock in the morning, but if it bothers other people, there are a lot of us, even not late sleepers, who sleep at 7 o'clock in the morning. And I can't tell you how many times, and Tony can tell you because I'm a real pest about this. I can't tell you how many times that my wife and I have worked extremely hard, and we pay taxes here. We pay a lot of taxes. And we go to sleep at 1 in the morning because we've worked until 12 or 1, and we're woken up at 7 a.m. by landscapers. So first of all, I think this should be just deleted, because I don't think it's conducive to the kind of civil society that we want here in Watertown.
Can I just ask a follow-up question? So if we delete it and we go just by the chart, and let's just argue it takes the average person longer than 10 minutes to mow their lawn. So right now, the maximum in a residential district, the maximum decibel limit would either be 60 dBAs or 10 decibels above the background noise. So what equipment out there, I guess, that strikes me as 60 is an extremely low number to regulate landscaping.
My equipment runs at less than 60 when I'm standing right next to it.
May I add to that? There are blowers now that are manufactured since, let's see, since the early 2000s, and they go at 65 decibels or less. And my question was, why are we separating out lawnmowers and leaf blowers? I was a little confused by that. But Newton, for example, use of all leaf blowers above 65 decibels is prohibited. There are no exceptions. And they have, with regard to gas-powered leaf blowers, they are prohibited during the summer months from Memorial Day through Labor Day. They are obnoxious. And on the wonderful holiday weekend, I had them going the entire weekend. So much for the rest that you're supposed to get on Labor Day weekend. Their rules say only 1 electric or battery-powered leaf blower per lot is allowed to be used between Memorial Day and Labor Day. I had 3 going on one very small lot. I'm in the S6000 zone, so it's ridiculous. And then after that for 9 months, I don't know why we need them after that for 9 months, because there are no leaves in the middle of December, January, and February. But they have to be below 65 decibels. And I believe this was handed out at another meeting, but it specs out on the class engines. They have to be certified by the town. And as Russa Rico, who's not here tonight, said to me, these rules are being enforced in our surrounding communities. Does everybody bring their crappy equipment over to Watertown to aggravate us? I mean, it's a little ridiculous. They all are using the same equipment. So are we just getting the ragtag teams in Watertown? I don't know what the answer is, and I'm not trying to be facetious, but it's extremely annoying for all of us.
Tony,
Other folks on this question? Yes, Councilor.
I was going to wait because I thought we were doing 3 and not 4, but
Well, I asked why they were being separated, Susan, so it's my fault, because,
I know it's your fault.
okay.
Okay, so,
I guess, I'm sorry, if I could just answer that
Yes,
question.
thank you, Anthony.
okay, because I have something to say about 4.
No, and that's fine. I think when Tony and I met, I was in favor of keeping it all together, but where there's obviously been, some concerns raised at these meetings by people about leaf blowers. I think Tony thought it was an important enough issue to have a standalone paragraph to emphasize.
I understand that. I think it's also important then still, though, to set a level, especially with the new equipment that's out there, because it's amazing, and it's battery-powered, so.
Yes, Counselor?
If I could, again, when I was out at Victory Field with the $400 sound level meter, so standing at Orchard Street, it was 55 dB ambient noise, but they were mowing the lawn at the front of the Lowell School, and when that was running, it was 65 dB, standing at the edge of Victory Field, more than a block away. So just to give you an idea of what the noise level is from a gas-powered lawnmower. So from a block away, that lawnmower was registering, it's 65 dB. So just, we want to be careful because we don't, again, as much as some people want to ban lawnmowers, the use of gasoline-powered lawnmowers in Watertown, I think we need to be realistic that this council cannot ban lawnmowers. We can't ban the use of gasoline-powered maintenance equipment. So, we need to, and right now, the way the ordinance is written, it's allowed from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. So, I understand, 8 o'clock may be a reasonable compromise, but we need to be careful that we can't make it illegal for people to mow their lawns. For the record, I have a cordless electric lawnmower. It's quieter than my vacuum cleaner. I have a 10,000 square foot lot.
Okay, Counselor?
Yes, so I was really concerned about this language that said, provide said leaf blowers are equipped with muffler or sound attenuating device. So I went to Farina today and said, what's with that? And they said, there's no such thing. And that a very reasonable thing to do is to require 60 decibels or less. And they're all the leaf blowers that you buy now are labeled, and there's no reason not to have that standard, but there's just no way to add a muffler. And also, he doesn't think that it makes a difference noise-wise between gas or electricity.
Okay, so let's go back to 3. Now, someone is suggesting that we take it out completely. We just remove 3, which I want to know what the implications of removing 3 are. Is that mean that if someone is cutting, or commercial or resident is cutting their lawn, or commercial cutting their lawn, and usually it takes more than 10 minutes. So let's say it's between 10 and 2 hours, that they have to, in the residential area, they cannot go any higher than 60 dBA.
Correct.
That's what that's saying?
Correct.
Okay. So
It doesn't quite say that. What it says is that,
if we take it out,
what it says is that the person hearing it hears it less than 60 dBA. In other words, you can mow the edge of your lawn and make more noise, but you can move it to the inside of your lawn later on, early on rather, and it'll make the same noise, but you won't hear it as loudly as a neighbor.
But I think Councilor Picciarelli's point about standing on one side of Orchard Street and just across at the Lowell, it exceeded the 60 decibels.
Right, and what that says is that if you have it at 65 decibels, then people can mow their lawns with our mower, with gas.
No, that instance would violate the noise ordinance. If it's 60,
Change the mower.
I understand that. So first of all, you can easily change it to 70 or something. 80 decibels next to your house is
Too much.
absolutely intolerable.
right, I understand that, and I agree with you, we could look at that, but I'm trying to respect your suggestion that we take it out completely. And I'm trying to understand, if we take it out 3, take it out completely, when would someone be in violation of the noise ordinance? When would they be making pollution, noise pollution? It seems to me they would be making noise pollution if they were cutting their lawn more than 10 minutes, but less than 2 hours, and they were making more noise at higher than 60 dBAs. So then they would be creating pollution, right? So what do people think about taking out this whole thing about maintenance? That no matter when it is in the time of the day, or what day of the week, because that's interesting on the day of the week too, or what hour, that as long as they're not making more noise than 60 dBAs, they can do anything they want.
Personally, Tony, I think given the standard for the new equipment is 65, I would put it at 65 for the leaf blowers.
I would too.
Okay, but I'm asking, we're talking about taking it out.
Well, I think that's unreasonable. It's better to have a rule that is clear about the equipment standard and the hours. And when you look at all the blowers, the new documentation, they are labeled at 65 dBA. I mean, I wake up.
Keep this in. You
Well, I
should-
think we have to. I think otherwise we look like we're crazy.
All right.
80 decibels?
Counselor? Keep it as 80 decibels. Counselor?
No, I said 65. 65 is the standard for these new leaf blowers, and they've been out there since 2005.
Okay, so let's move back to, we're leaving it in, we're trying to amend it.
I don't know about the lawnmowers, but I have this. We can find out.
We're trying to amend what we're leaving it in, but we're trying to amend it. And we're on 3, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and so on 3, which I'd also be in favor of consolidating with leaf blowers, although I guess, in my mind, part of the difficulty when you say cumulative, because how many pieces of equipment are on a particular parcel, I can tell you that 65 is plenty loud, 70, 75, 80, 90, 100 is around me, and it's just terrible. You know, so you might as well have an airplane. So I would be, if you wanted to keep 3 as it is, as 3A, I would be in favor of lowering this to 65.
Okay.
But, you know, what about the cumulative piece? I mean, does that mean they can operate one piece of equipment at a time?
Well,
They can
according to
operate
Newton.
multiple if it doesn't exceed, right now, 80 decibels.
Right, so I think so I'll give you,
That's not
so one example, there have been
We're talking about.
3 leaf
Go ahead, comes.
3 leaf blowers, a ride-on mower, and a gas trimmer all going at once. And that, you know, easily can reach 90 decibels.
Okay, so we're talking
So 65.
65, okay.
I think you could have 2 pieces at once right next to my property line, and you probably wouldn't exceed that, but.
Counselor?
I think just a couple points on 3. One, to Council Falcoff's comment about 2, I'd be in favor of the 8 AM to 5 PM, but I think we should be consistent with the 9 AM to 5 PM.
Yes.
And then, I'm also, with regard to the decibel level, you know, I look at this noise level chart that I think Elodia provided to us at this point, is probably 18 months ago. And it lists a lawnmower as 90 decibels. So now I understand that that's high, but my concern is and I understand there's a whole lot of new technology, and you would hope businesses would be adopting it on their own because for best practices, or, you know, maybe it's more economical, but I worry that if we set a maximum of 65, that we could effectively be shutting certain business owners down.
So Anthony, that might be the reason to separate out lawnmowers and leaf blowers, because I will tell you, my neighbor has 2 big commercial lawnmowers coming in on that lot, plus a weed whacker, plus a blower. And so I don't have the answer, but I'm happy to go to Farina and ask some questions to get information about decibel levels, if they have anything, to bring that back as more information for the committee. But it is an onslaught, and when it went on for the entire weekend, I thought, wow, this is crazy.
But also, I'm not sure where they got the 90 decibels for, that's not a typical lawnmower, I can tell you that, especially for a homeowner lot in Watertown. Because I've been taking measurements at my own property as well as other places in the neighborhood on different equipment, and I'd be shocked. Right next to the motor, but.
Councilor Folkoff, you said you went to Farina's?
I went to Farina's. I didn't talk about lawnmowers. I was just
Leaf blowers.
obsessing about leaf blowers. But I want to say one other thing. What wakes me up at 7 in the morning once a week is the garbage truck.
But we're not talking about the garbage. Let's just hang on to the garbage.
No, I mean, I understand that's a different thing, but I'm just talking about levels of noise, and that it does happen at 7 a.m. And we all, it's not going on for 2 hours, but I think everybody accepts that the garbage trucks start at 7 a.m., and that's okay.
They leave after 2
Fortunately.
minutes.
Councilor Bays?
Well, in terms of the garbage trucks,
No.
they're not sustained. I was just going to say they're not sustained. It's not sustained. So there is the issue that when you have several leaf blowers, when I was doing my research, together they do go over, even if they are at 65 decibels, together they are above 65 decibels. So I can see, I'm fine with doing 65 decibels because frankly, that's about what I feel like we should have to tolerate. I don't see how we could get rid of these two, as much as I would love it. I don't think it's practical. But I could see having something at 70 or 75 decibels, with all the new equipment. They're having to buy it for Newton anyway. And we share a lot of the same companies, so I could see putting it at something like 70, 75 decibels.
Okay, so let me just say, we're keeping this.
Can you just clarify what she means when you say get rid of these two, you mean eliminating the paragraphs?
We're not eliminating.
That's what I said, we're not, I'm not for that.
But what are you talking about?
Paragraphs 3 and 4.
Three and four.
Paragraphs 3
as
and 4.
Thank you.
as
Okay,
Dan
because
had
there's
suggested.
several
Yeah.
A, B,
Yep.
4.
Nope.
Thank you.
So we're keeping 3 and 4 in, we're making amendments to it. And the first amendment that we're looking at is to change it, to be consistent, that on weekdays, on weekends and legal holidays, we'd like to change that from 9 to 5. Can I have is there agreement on that?
Wait,
So on weekends, right now, it's 10 to 6, and to be consistent with the previous, we said 9 to 5.
Okay, do we need a vote on that, or is there consensus on that?
I think it's good, but Anthony also talked about changing the weekday hours, and I'm not in
Oh,
support.
I don't
Why
want to,
wouldn't you, though, to
misunderstood
be
that.
consistent? Because the weekday hours are 7 to 7,
I'll tell you why.
and here they're 7
I
to
can
8.
answer that.
Okay.
The answer is that I think there's a lot of small contractors who have a day job and then come out and mow lawns in the evening. And I feel like I wouldn't want to put them out of business. And in the summer, it's light longer, and so I would just not be in favor of changing that.
Okay.
Can we do the first one first? Everybody agree, or do we need a vote to change the weekends and legal holidays to 9 to 5, to be consistent with the others?
Yes. Vote.
Yes.
Yes.
I think, that's fine with me.
Okay. Now, the second one is that, Counselor, should we change, is anybody making a motion to change this from 7 to 7?
No.
No.
I would make a motion to change it 8 to 8, though.
Change it 8 to 8, okay. That the
On
weekdays, they start at 8,
That's an interesting idea.
okay? Do you want to argue for that, or discuss that?
Well, it's not so much that they wake us up, but we during the summer times are outside, and I can tell you, I would say at least 3 or 4 mornings a week, we are driven inside by the lawnmowers. And I'm not the only one. I've heard this complaint from lots of people. There's so much noise at 7 a.m. and that is not a good time. I mean, you're just waking up. It's a tough time. I think 8 a.m. is a perfectly legitimate time to start work. Noisy work.
If I can add, Somerville for outdoor garden, lawn, or garden tools is 9, these are prohibited between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m., so that's even longer hours. I don't think you want that. Or between 9 and 9 on Saturday and weekends. I take that back. Every ordinance is written differently. They flip them. I'm sorry. I apologize.
You like Somerville when it works for you, Elodia, but you don't like it when it works against you.
Counselor?
Well, I was just going to say, since we're reducing the overall level of noise, I don't have a problem keeping it 7. And
Well, we
it's
haven't
kind
agreed
of-
upon that yet.
Haven't agreed on that.
Well,
So,
that was one of our stated goals,
oh,
and
I see
we're
what
trying to
you're
reduce noise pollution overall. So I would say that I'd be in favor of keeping 7 a.m. as kind of, it's a known time that everyone knows about. I don't feel that strongly about it. Again, the police and staff could weigh in on that.
Okay, so we're going to, unless, Counselor, do you want to make a motion? Otherwise, I think there's sort of seems to be a feeling
I
that
made the
7 to
motion.
8
Is anyone
works.
seconding it?
You going to leave it, or you want to make?
I made the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anybody want to second Counselor Bay's
8
motion?
to 8.
8 to 8 on weekdays. 8 to 8.
Can we discuss it before you vote on it?
Needs to
We're
be
not voting
seconded.
'cause nobody's-
I'll second the motion, so now we can discuss it.
So there's a huge difference in ambient noise between 7 in the morning and 8 in the morning. And what bothers people as much as the absolute level is the difference of that noise versus the ambient noise. So I think it's a very clever idea to start at 8 o'clock, because at that time, the ambient, and I've measured this, the ambient noise goes from, let's say, around our house, from 45 decibels at 7 to about 55 at 8. It changes pretty dramatically. And it makes a huge psychological difference.
Okay. Any other people want to speak to it? Okay, I seconded the motion to change it from 8 to 8. Okay, so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, so it doesn't carry. There was,
I'm present.
okay, it was 2, and 1 present.
I'm typing, I'm recording, I'm present.
Okay, now the
back
question
to
of
council
changing changing the level. That 80 is too high, whether it's cumulative or one piece of equipment. And that there are pieces of equipment that are registered, whether they're gas-powered or not, that can be as low as 65. So would anybody like to make a motion?
I'm sorry, I was typing. Can you say that again for me, please?
We're looking at the changing the 80 dBAs to a different amount, a different
In
level.
number 3?
In 3.
Okay.
Would anybody like, okay, I'll make
I'll
a
make a-
motion that we change this to 65 dBAs, either cumulative or no individual piece shall exceed a maximum noise level of 65 dBAs.
For both?
For
individual
3
and-
or 4? Or
We're just
3?
on 3 right now.
Just on 3.
Okay.
So the question is it
Are you saying,
individual or cumulative?
are you changing both places to 60?
No, I'm sorry, no,
Lawnmower's average is 90 dB.
yes.
That's, I don't know how old that
So that's what I'm saying, 65.
I would just point out the sentence there about further, no individual piece of equipment shall exceed 80 dB. If you say the total noise can't exceed 80 dB, in
So
cumulative,
just, you're saying delete the last,
one
delete the
piece,
last, right.
then by definition, one piece couldn't exceed.
so just
80 dB.
delete the last sentence.
So that last sentence actually makes no sense.
Okay, so I am suggesting that we we change it from 80 to 65, and then we'll have another motion to delete the last sentence, or consensus to delete the last.
Second.
Second. All right, discussion of moving it from 80 to 65. Counselor,
So I mean, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but does anybody know what a gas-powered lawnmower operate in your backyard measures at? Can anybody here tell me it doesn't exceed?
Depends on the age.
I think I need to go back to Farina.
Yeah.
So we have to be, and again,
Yeah.
I will tell you right now, I will not support this with 65 dB unless it is supported in fact that it will not affect the average homeowner in Watertown. And that we need to be grounded in reality. We cannot pass a law that makes it illegal for the vast majority of homeowners in Watertown to use their lawnmower. Okay, we have to be very clear that, despite our aspirations that we want to make Watertown quieter, there are some realities.
70.
And to say there are lawnmowers, but my lawnmower, like I said, it is so quiet that you can't even tell it's running from inside the house. But
So I could
it's
make a
unreasonable
motion
to
to amend it
expect,
to
and I will
70.
just, it is unreasonable, and I caution the committee.
Okay,
It's
thank you.
unreasonable to expect that we're going to pass a law saying everybody
Okay,
has
we got
to-
it, we got it,
has
we
to
got
abide.
it.
So I just,
So we're
Vinny.
having a
Sit down,
motion,
Vinny.
we got a motion to amend.
So.
Go ahead. You're
We need a
making
motion to amend it to 70.
So 70, okay.
70, we're making a motion to amend it to 70, second that, I'll second that motion to amend it to 70, so instead of 80, it goes to 70. Is that, all those in favor of that, please say yes or no.
Yes.
Yes, all opposed that?
Opposed.
Well, our,
So what did you say?
Vinny support
Did you say yes?
I didn't
You're
vote.
present.
I
I'm
don't
present.
have
I
the
want to go
data
to Farina and get more information before
Oh.
I vote.
Okay,
We can
Susan
look it
has
up on the phone right now.
So that passed at 70.
Martin just,
70.
Mr. Martin just looked it up and said it was 70
At 3 feet.
at 3 feet.
So that should be fine. The average lawnmower.
it depends on the lawnmower, of course.
But
Yeah,
that,
of course,
that'd be,
but I mean, we can't.
that'd be fine because it's not,
Okay, so can we do this again? I'm not sure, because one counselor didn't vote, so I need to get,
Well, the other question is, what is a leaf blower?
we didn't get to
we haven't
that.
gotten to that.
Leaf blower is covered under 3A. That
No,
is,
no.
Well,
it's-
right now, yeah, it's redlined out.
It's redlined out.
It's under
not.
4.
it's not redlined out.
It is, it's under 4.
It's crossed out, Vinny. Sit down.
Where's the gavel?
Well, then, if that's the case, then you should probably exclude it. And what is the, we have to, and again, I am concerned, okay, a circular saw, which I use in my backyard.
That's not a lawn, that's not a lawn
Yes,
thing.
Yes, it actually says it right there, including lawnmowers and power saws permitted between 7. So yes, it is.
Power equipment.
Why is power saws in there?
Please, so can somebody tell me that if I'm using my circular saw in my backyard,
Isn't
it
that
won't exceed
construction?
70 dB?
It's
Well,
a-
it doesn't
That's the
give any
thing,
time
the
limit.
duration is not.
It
I-
has no time limit, it's absolute.
So maybe we should take
Do
it
you
out.
mean for the power saws to be, are you talking about the kind of saws that cut trees? Is
Well-
that what you meant?
Well, that could be a,
Landscaping.
The landscaping tool power saw, which I've seen.
well,
So you can
it's
see
a
what
power
type of
equipment. It
Brand
doesn't
new-
specify.
I think it's
But a
all.
do you
It's like
mean-
a
It could be
circular
a
saw.
chainsaw, it could be a,
Oh, that felt good.
anyway, it just,
That was 70 decibels. Okay, now, I think we're going to stick to this. We're just going to stick to it. Counselor Fitzgerald raises a question about one of the things we included in this. So we have a motion to change it from 80 to 70. Okay, so let's deal with that motion, and then we'll come back and deal with the power saw. So is there agreement, or do we have to take a vote to move this from 80 to 70? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
All opposed?
Opposed.
All, and,
1, 2, 3, 4, 4.
So
oh, you did?
for,
Okay. Now, power saws. Do we mean a power saw when you are building something and you bring out your power saw, your little hand power saw? Or are we talking about someone who's taking a power saw and cutting a tree down?
That's called a chainsaw.
A chainsaw. So why don't we change this word from power saw to chainsaw?
Because, power, I think it would be
well, one-
any type of saw, because it
One
falls
encompasses-
under
one
power
encompasses the other.
equipment, yeah.
Power equipment?
Right, I think power equipment encompasses chainsaw, circular saw.
Do you mean,
Counselor?
do you mean lawn power equipment? I mean, this is about the ground maintenance. This is not about doing, using a circular saw out in your yard when you're doing construction inside. So can it just say,
I think the
Landscape.
genesis of this word being in here is if you go, because this started as just minor exceptions to the, minor modifications to the original, and that language is in the original. So I think it was just when they tried to beef up the original, that power saws stayed in there, so.
So what was the original, Counselor?
The original exception just read domestic equipment such as lawnmowers and power saws. So I think we could get rid of power saws and
okay.
it would fall, whatever, it falls under power equipment, because any equipment that's,
What are you
Power.
making a motion to do?
I'm not making a motion to do anything, but if for clarity, if people think it needs to be deleted, that I have no objection to that.
Yes?
I looked up chainsaw, Tony, and it says the dB level of a typical chainsaw used by foresters can be up to 119 decibel levels. But it is not going on and on and on.
Well,
Depends on what they're cutting down. Yes?
I think that problem completely disappears if you allow it from 8 in the morning.
So that would be, so from the man himself who brought the original complaint, because again, the way that, so what you've just adopted, which I will tell you I will not support when it comes to the full council, putting that 70 dB level means you could not hire somebody to cut down a tree in your yard. And while that may make Libby happy, there are certain times when you need to use a chainsaw to take down a tree. And again, we can't make it illegal for arborists to use trees, even to prune trees, to save them, to prolong their lives. So,
But if we left it at 80, we leave it at 80 and someone brings in a chainsaw and it's 200 or 120, what are we saying?
it's illegal to operate that chainsaw.
So should we have it at 120?
So I don't get it. If you're saying we keep it at 80.
So I think what it is, well, I didn't say I was going to support it at 80 either. So what maybe we do is we change it. So my question is, what is Cambridge and Belmont's and Newton's start time for landscaping?
It changes.
And if you find that it's 8 a.m.
I have Newton's up.
It's complicated. But, maybe, and I think Cambridge, I believe, is 8 a.m. Is that correct?
I believe so, but it's really, they have many zones in
Yeah,
Cambridge.
but again,
Domestic power equipment for Somerville is 9/8.
We already know about Somerville. How about Cambridge? Or Newton and
Cambridge.
Belmont? Well, so and again,
Got Newton's.
David makes a great, Dan, sorry, too many. Maybe the real issue is we take out that maximum. We take out the maximum and we change it from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. and say we've accomplished what we need to accomplish. I just think it's going to be fraught for, and if we, and I would just say, if we think you want to have any hope that this is going to pass the council,
Special permits.
has nothing to do with special.
If you want to do 120, it's like, you said that about construction.
So could we put a separate thing for tree removal in here?
I don't think changing it to 8 a.m. solves all the problems if you're going to have equipment that's running at 90 decibels next to the time of day. It's, for the duration is not acceptable. I have
I-
residents
let's
who work
let-
all night and
let's let
sleep during the day.
Martin, Mr. Martin, you want to say something?
So Tony,
Counselor,
Okay, I can read Cambridge's ordinance.
hang on a second, please.
could we just take out everything except ground maintenance for number 3 and not have in power equipment? Because it seems like what we're really concerned about here is lawnmowers.
I guess the problem is, what if something doesn't fall within the category of construction or demolition? And I can't think of anything off the top of my head, so I'm not, but if something doesn't fall within one, which is construction or demolition or home improvement, or doesn't fall within the definition of ground maintenance, I think power equipment then covers any other equipment that is powered. So I think that it's good to have that language in there, because you wouldn't want somebody to figure out what that loophole is and to argue the noise ordinance doesn't apply.
And on the same token, though, if we took it out, then someone who is operating a power equipment would have to abide by A or B. I mean, 1A or...
One.
Right.
Right, they'd have to abide by that.
Correct.
Okay. So I think we could take it out, and we would then not
Have another problem.
have,
No, it just.
no, I think
under
taking it out
this.
would ease up the,
Be fine.
yeah.
Well, people are raising the issue of tree work, which is very noisy.
So that would be under one. That starts to become under one if you take out. In other words, it becomes a construction thing.
Oh.
If we take out power equipment, then I think it's more restrictive on the, and then putting it in, because this way you can do it, right? I mean,
Right, if we remove power equipment from the exemption, then it would be governed by the
the
chart or the
it
10
would be
decibels
more
above.
more restrictive.
But then it'd be, again, then it would be more restricted, because if your background ambient noise measured on Orchard Street was 55 dB, and your lawnmower is 75 dB, it's like, well, you running your lawn, cut your front lawn would be illegal.
So,
That's what I'm saying. That's why the exemption was there. So just think about, the exemption currently is lawn equipment, power saws are exempt from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week.
Correct.
That's what the current law says.
I mean, that's not what I'm looking at.
Yeah, no, the current, not the current.
stop making the noise.
And that's only about 30, 40, 45 dB.
So
It's
that's
total.
what the, so again, it's one thing to say,
Cambridge.
consider, and this whole thing started with consider changing the start time for that one section from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., which has its merits. But, limiting, putting aside the issue of leaf blowers, limiting, the use of power equipment for lawn, yard maintenance, where there are noisy machines, and sometimes it is, yes, cutting down a tree is noisy, but only lasts for like 15 or 20 minutes. Unless they're grinding
Depends
it,
on how
and
big
then
the
they'll
tree
grind
is.
the thing. But, people, it's not like people cut down a tree in the yard every single day, so.
I'm not sure I understand what your point being, but what did you have to say, Elodia?
Well, I'm just reading the use of leaf blowers
Oh.
in Cambridge.
We're
not
not
talking
on
leaf
leaf blowers just yet.
You're going on the construct, I have
Not construction, lawn.
Is there anything about cutting down trees?
We were wondering,
trying to see if I can find that. I have construction, equipment, drilling, or demolition work, and then we go into all the other stuff, so I don't see cutting down trees yet.
So I was just saying lawn care is, what is lawn care? I mean, does any other community start at 7, or does they have different things? And again, it's complicated because.
But we're not saying not to start at 7, we're leaving that in, right? We haven't
I
changed
just got
that.
voted down.
All right, so I just, and I will just point out that 3B completely contradicts 3A, so the times are completely, I don't know what 3B came from or what you're trying to accomplish with 3B, but that is completely different.
Tony suggested we put that in, and I agreed with him. I think it's to clarify that, so we actually have to change the hours now because we changed them in A, but the point is that if somebody, comes home and mows their lawn at whatever time, they're governed by the chart. It's just making clear.
But that's true of everything, so I don't.
Right.
But also you have the time, it says 6 PM. You can do it between 8 PM, but then it says 6 PM, so the times don't match.
Right,
But I would just, 3B should be deleted in its entirety because it makes no sense.
Well, we thought it made sense. Maybe it doesn't make sense after reconsideration, but it did seem, make sense when we wrote it. So, let's,
Yeah, but anyway, so just, I just, we need to, you know, and, you know, my concern is that we're sitting here talking about, should it be 70 dB, should it be 80 dB, should it be 65? And it's, I would say it's not good lawmaking to just base it based on what.
Just say consider yourself.
throwing out. It needs to be grounded in reality about, you know, what does it mean for the homeowner, like, on the ground? What is the practical?
Vinny,
Okay.
Susan's kicking you.
Okay.
yes, Dan?
So
Duly noted.
we're still on this point. You know, I think Vinnie raises a really good point. And I want to put it in the context of the purpose. The purpose is to improve quality of life, I think, right? That's the overall purpose.
Trying to
And I do think that the problem of lawnmowers, first of all, most of it just disappears if we start at 8 a.m. I know we voted on it, but we can re-vote on it. And a lot of the other problems disappear. I think the problem of really extraordinary noise, like chainsaws, I hate carve-outs, but it's possible to deal with those as a carve-out. They happen relatively infrequently. They're very annoying when they do happen, and it's possible to deal with some of those very, very, very intermittent things separately. But the big problems that bother people are the lawnmowers and the leaf blowers, the level of noise that they make, and the time that they're operated. And that is 80 or 90% of when we talk about quality of life. So my proposal would be, yes, we do need limits for lawnmowers. We're talking only about them. I think we do need limits for lawnmowers. Whether it's 65 or 70 or 75, that gets to be a much easier decision if it can only be done after 8 o'clock.
I don't understand the relationship to the time and why that makes a difference.
Ambient noise, Tony, it's the ambient noise at 8 o'clock.
Oh, I see.
Is
Right.
much higher.
Higher, right.
You're into your day usually.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
You're not just trying to
Yes,
wake
go
up.
ahead, Kate.
Hi, I guess I have a question, which is, wouldn't tree service coming in be covered under number 1? There would be a noise associated with construction or demolition of a tree and home improvement work, taking down a tree by a commercial enterprise, right? Unless, of course, it's the homeowner doing it. So what I thought we might need is another section for power equipment used by homeowner. That, you know, you want them to be able to run their circular saw or something, but you might want to limit it to a certain extent.
I think that's covered. Sorry.
Go ahead, please.
I think that's covered. I understand where you're,
Yeah.
I guess it depends on what paragraph it falls under, because 3A specifically says residents or commercial
For
enterprises.
Exactly, but then it encompasses everything, right?
Right.
Well, and to Vinnie's point, you know, he's like, well, what about, you know, someone who uses a chainsaw? But that should be covered under number 1 also, because usually it's a commercial, not, I'd say rarely it's not a commercial. Okay, so,
Did you have something to share?
Several things, Tony. I hate to go back, but they do have something here about construction devices at any street excavation, grading or repair, utility street work installation or repair, which produces a noise level exceeding 86 dBA at a distance of 50 feet or approximately 15 meters from the device. So that's just talking about restrictions on noise from construction sites. Going to the issue of leaf blowers, which
We're not there yet.
well, I found the construction noise thing, and there's also power tools.
Okay.
Operating or permitting the operation of any mechanically powered saw, drill, sander, grinder, lawn or garden tool, snow blower, similar device, used outdoors in residential areas between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. so as to be plainly audible at a distance of 50 feet from the lot line of the lot on which said activity is located or in a noise-sensitive zone. I mean, these things are crazy making to read.
Is there a
They're
decibel
so
level?
crazy making to
Decibel level
understand.
is- I know, that's what I'm
So
trying to say. The restrictions on a residential property are 75 dBA with these L
So
things.
75.
See, I would put it at 75, actually.
75 is the limit, Elodia?
So they do,
75 is the limit at 50 feet.
some of them do it in the alternative. They say it's prohibited from 10 PM to 7 AM, so then it's allowed from 7 AM to 10 PM. They say it in the reverse.
But leaf blowers, they have more restrictions on. So
We're not talking about
75 would be the level if I look at this in a residential zone for the cap. So
And that's
that
pretty
10
loud
80
because it's at 50 feet away, too.
Right, well, we don't.
So you
really
would
have to deal with
definitely
that.
accommodate existing lawnmowers.
And in many cases, they only allow one tool to be used
Yeah.
at a time. So that's there's restrictions on that. For example, I don't want to jump ahead, but on 10,000 square feet or less property, only one leaf blower at a time may be used. It's very complicated.
Yeah, we're not going to be able to do
I'm
that.
sorry, Tony.
This-
Yeah, I
it's-
know that, I know that. I'm just trying, there's also restrictions on times leaf blowers can be used, like between March 15th and June 15th, and September 15th and December 31st in any year. I'm
Okay.
just saying, the more you dig, the more you go cuckoo.
But to Vinnie's point, that, and with the Cambridge pointing out, it's, they have that leeway of 50 feet away if it's 75 dBA. So that's very loud, because if they're right at your property or you're 10 feet away, it could be 80, 90 decibels, but 50 feet away, it's going to be much less than that.
Okay. So I'm
Bigger
going
than
to admit
Cambridge,
to,
right?
I'm going to admit to being a little bit confused at this point. It is 9:30. I thought we made some progress, but we are sort of stuck on number 3. And I'd like to make some of the following suggestions just quickly, that we eliminate, on number 3, we eliminate the
B.
sentence further, no individual piece of equipment shall exceed a maximum, since it's not necessary. That's consensus on that.
I think so, and just to go along with that, then we probably want to do it in 1, because we have the same thing, where it's, I apologize, because that's, I think we, to make it consistent between 1 and 3, because right now, we have the same language at one site, the 90 decibels and then further, so just to make it consistent in 1, eliminate the exact same sentence, just so they're consistent.
I think that's fine.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. So we're doing that. On number 3, we did agree that it was 9 to 5 to be consistent. On that, we did agree. There is a suggestion that we eliminate B altogether. Again, this was tried to do this so that we would address individual homeowners coming home at a certain time and wanting to operate. But do we want to hold on that one?
Tony, may I interject for a second? Because I did find something in Newton with yard, garden, or grounds maintenance equipment. These are the maximum noise levels that are permitted. I'm just offering this, so hopefully we can finish this section. Commercial chipper, 3.5-inch or greater limb capacity running at full speed but not chipping is 90. Commercial truck-mounted leaf vacuum is 90. All other equipment, including home tractor, lawnmower, or trimmer, is 65. Noise measurements shall be made at a distance of 50 feet from the source or from the nearest lot line, whichever distance is less.
So what does that say about number 3, Lodia? What is the implication of what you just read? Is it that we should leave it at 80, or should we increase it to 90?
Well, they obviously have different numbers for commercial level activity.
No, it's a different philosophy. It's a different philosophy. Their philosophy is, let's rate the equipment, not the noise. And so what Lodi's referring to is that that equipment is rated at a certain noise level.
Right.
This is the maximum noise level permitted by this, for these things.
Well, oh, the ones you read off, 90,
The
et
ones
cetera.
yes, these, that I read off. No, that's why I wanted to clarify that. So, and it it's measured at a distance of 50 feet from the source or from the nearest lot line, whichever distance is less.
So the implication is that we should actually raise this from 80 to 90.
No, that's not what she said.
No, there's differences.
For a few, for a few things.
And the commercial truck-mounted equipment is
Okay.
90, Tony.
I got it.
All other equipment.
Yeah, I just don't know, are we going to write an ordinance that breaks out each pieces of equipment?
No, because, well, personally, somebody coming to cut down a tree is not happening every single day.
Right.
So I don't get freaked out about that so much. I think it's the other stuff that people are really exhausted by.
Well, it's an attempt, maybe imperfect, to get at Vinnie's concern is that you don't want a law that doesn't allow people to operate their lives. And by looking at different pieces of equipment, it sort of looks at reality and says, look, if you have a wood chipper, it's not going to be 65 decibels because that's not a wood chipper. And if you have a power saw, it's not going to be 65 decibels because then it's not a power saw. So my general comment is these things are really complicated. I like Vinnie's idea of trying to get information. It postpones things a lot, but trying to get some actual data and of the kind that you're giving and Mr. Martin, I guess, gave as well, and use those to make these decisions. The alternative is to use precedent.
Well, I'm a little lost on how we would use all the data, unless we're going to take out, unless we decide we have a residential enterprise and a commercial enterprise, and we have two sets of enterprises, and we write them a little differently, and we put...
Would it be helpful to break out a little chart for our next meeting and just break out leaf blowers and those things that different communities are doing? Because I'm just offering that. I could also go to Farina and ask them some information.
Sure,
I mean,
go right ahead, yeah.
I don't know if anybody wants to help with that. Hey, Marcia? So we could pull that, because it is very complicated, because each town writes it differently, the hours are different, it's exhausting.
It is, and
We're exhausted.
we are exhausted. It's 9:30, so we're going to leave this as it is, and we have accomplished a few things. Clearly, we didn't get through to the end.
Tony, did we vote on 70?
Can I just make one more? Let's not make this more complicated than it
Denise,
has
sit
to
down.
be. Listing each type of equipment at sound level. We have to realize that the police department's going to have to enforce this. And if they got to go and say, well, that's a 3-inch diameter, that's a 12-inch
Not
diameter
you specifically, Ray.
grinder, or a 3-inch diameter grinder, and this one is okay,
We're not,
65, this
Vinnie.
one's an 80.
So what?
And I would just say, how many of us, Office of Police Department, received a complaint from somebody that, a noise complaint because a tree was being cut down? I would venture to say, never.
But how does that affect number 3?
Number 3, because we're talking about all different, so what I'm saying is, trying to assign.
Okay, I understand. Tell me what you would say with number 3. Just how do you see?
I would delete, in my mind, delete that cumulative noise
You would put a period after legal holidays.
after legal holidays, period. That's what because that's what the current ordinance says, and it hasn't been a problem. And if we really want to address what.
It hasn't been a problem?
Has not been a problem.
That's not true.
It's been a horrible problem.
Lawnmowers have, well, the issue is the time, not the volume.
Oh,
No, that's not true.
I'm driven out of my house.
By lawnmowers.
Look,
Well, all right.
I'm committed to working on this issue. It's a difficult issue, it's complicated. Yes, we're not going to make it more complicated than it needs to be, but I think we do need some more detail. Just because it's difficult or hard doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. And I think we've already come up with some good compromise, and we're getting close. And Elodia's suggestions, a little more information, we'll get there.
Counselor?
If I could make a suggestion, because it is running late, and I know there are several people in the audience who come here specifically for the exceptions, and we never quite make it there. So maybe we could hold off on 3 and 4, they'll come up again, and we can try to quickly get through some of these other things so we can get to exceptions. Because I can't imagine D and E are controversial because it's just cleaning up references. And then what's redlined out in 9503 and 9504, it's just because we've moved them around, and then we get 2 exceptions.
So, what are you suggesting, Counselor?
I would suggest as a wholesale, we accept the changes to C, which just clarifies a reference to a corrected section. We had discussed standardizing language about legal holidays. That's all that's in there in D. 9503 and 9504 are still in, they've just moved. And then it gets us down to exceptions, which I think a lot of people.
Okay, so anybody, so Councilor Donato is saying we should just accept C and D?
Yes.
Okay. We agree on that, and we now can move to some of the exceptions, right?
And also 3 and 4.
They were just minor changes. Certain sections were renumbered, so they were just correcting the references.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
I do not have the patience of an elephant.
So are we reviewing the exceptions to get through it, Anthony? Okay.
That would be my hope, only because I think that's a big thing for a lot of people, and we've never quite gotten there.
It's 25 of 10. We're going to give this 15 minutes, and we'll see if we can get through the exceptions.
We are? Right now? Oh, I thought we were coming back.
No, we're going to try to get through the exceptions.
I think we're going to
Should we-
return
can
to
we-
3 and 4.
We're going to return to 3 and 4.
Oh, can
No,
I
but
just
can
say
we-
one thing about 3 and 4? About 4? I just really, I mean, there is technology, there is precedent, there is a way to deal with leaf blowers. They come with the decibel level marked on them. 65 seems to be an acceptable standard, and there is no such thing as a muffler or sound attenuating device.
And I think if we can get through some of these other things, that means at the next meeting, we can spend more time on the leaf blowers, because I think it's a more complicated issue that we need to spend time on.
Okay.
So if we
let's-
can narrow other things down.
Let's look at the exceptions.
Do we need to vote on the changes that we just made, or no? Is that fine?
I think it was just general
Okay, good.
consent, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so this has to do with exceptions. The emission of sound for the purpose of alerting people. So does anybody have any trouble with A?
That doesn't look like a change.
Because we're looking at,
No, I have what.
We're looking here.
no, she's got something different.
Yeah, A. Emission of sound from the purpose of,
Oh, printed different, okay.
so
I'm fine
exception,
with
is
it.
there any exception with A? Are you okay?
A's great.
A's
I
great.
think we need
Okay.
it.
Noise from a sound system played during any activity sponsored by the Recreation Committee, department, or like institutions, if the noise played in generally accepted such activity, for example, noise generated by an announcer. Music played during a sports activity or practice for such sporting activity sponsored by the Recreation or School Department, or any like institution with permit, must be reasonable for the circumstances and location, so as not to unduly disturb the nearest inhabited residents, and must conform with all rules and regulations promulgated by such department or institution. Okay, so I have I have Dick's suggestion here on this, but please go ahead, ma'am. You haven't had a chance to speak at all for the whole meeting.
All right, I'm Julianne Lizzie. First of all, I do not believe that music should be played during practice. I don't understand why that would be necessary. Certain sporting activities I understand. I remember Alodia had mentioned some issues with people playing tennis and having boom boxes going. I don't understand why you would ever have, I get music being played for team sports.
Okay.
But individual sports, like two people playing tennis against each other, I don't think music at all has any place in that. I don't understand the need. And what I really am confused about is who defines what is reasonable for the circumstances?
Okay, so you're making two suggestions. One is that practice should have nothing
I
but,
would just eliminate that.
okay, and then what's the other one?
And then And then it talks about having music as long as it's reasonable for the circumstances.
Uh-huh.
And I think that that's awfully vague and would be totally unenforceable.
Where is that?
Yeah.
Just reasonable for the circumstances. Oh, that's it. Okay, fine. Go ahead.
I really get a sense here of how personal a lot of these issues are. We try to establish standards, but certain things bother some people more than they bother other.
Right.
I listen to a litany of what disturbs certain people, and I just think, what is it? What is it? Well, anyhow, here's mine.
That's what we've been waiting for.
I oppose the adoption of paragraph B, which gives the school and recreation departments such sudden, sweeping, and unprecedented power and authority over the lives, happiness, and well-being of all of us who live in this town. We seek relief from the mushrooming incidents of loud and sustained amplified music on our playgrounds, not its extension. These departments run or permit athletic activities, sometimes 8 or more hours a day. Are our concerns now to be completely disregarded during those hours? And this next point I've mentioned here a couple of times before. A successful program of school or town athletics has never required or been dependent upon violating the peace and contentment of our homes and neighborhoods with amplified music. Such invasiveness is only rudeness and incivility, which should have no place in school or town-sponsored sports, or in any activities conducted by outside organizations permitted to use our neighborhood facilities, and so should not be accepted from the provisions of our noise ordinance. As to the poor, nearest inhabited residence, which is not to be unduly disturbed, I would point out that the incursions of amplified music on our playgrounds affect whole neighborhoods and not only abutters. For instance, at Victory Field, near where we live, there are some 25 abutters, but also some 1,000+ homes within hearing distance which are affected. Now, I think that in sports practices and contests, I mean, you want the exuberance. That's a place where the exuberance is good. It's a place you want to get yelling and screaming, bringing your noisemakers, that kind of thing. That's one thing. We used to have for many years, but from 1928 till, I believe, 1991, we had a school band at football games. I went to a number of these, and I used to play in sports bands when I was young. But the noise was limited, and it did not come close to what the boom boxes some of the kids bring to the sports contests now. And the reason is because, as I mentioned at a previous meeting, the audio signals of a lot of popular music now are sonically interfered with and boosted, especially to boost the bass and to boost the punch in it. And which is why when you play a loud boombox, for instance, on Victory Field, you hear it halfway through the town. You hear the bass and you hear the punch, even if you don't hear the music. So, and just the brief uses of brief excerpts of played on the public address system or on a boombox, music to accompany cheerleader dance routines, as has always happened here. You know, occasional use, you know, in between, just for a minute or two. What I object to is turning on the boom boxes, turning on the audio systems, and leaving them on, leaving the music going for extended periods of time, for more than a few minutes at a time. It's that's disturbing, not the exuberance and not the human noise, but just that. And we've had cases in the last couple of years where not only local, children in our own school system have brought their sound systems, but opposing teams have brought theirs, and cranked them up. I also want to mention, well, this has to do with, this gets into section C, this gets into paragraph C. I don't know, we're not doing that now, but this sort of ties into what I'm saying.
Go ahead.
Do you want me
You
to,
can-
do you want me
that's
to go
okay.
ahead? The impetus for this request from the School and Recreation Department seems to be based upon a willful misreading of paragraph C, where sporting events are being construed as accepted across the board, when in fact it is only occasional sporting events which are to be accepted. And the phrase sporting events refers not just to sports, but also to gambling and games of chance. For instance, when the churches used to run Las Vegas nights, that would be considered a sporting event in the traditional use of the term. So just as the meaning of paragraph C is occasional outdoor gatherings, it's also occasional public dances, occasional shows, and occasional sporting events and entertainments.
Okay.
So, I would like to say that I agree with everything that was just
I know.
said. And for a long time, the attitude of the school department and the recreation department and everyone else running the town seemed to be, they didn't give a damn. They'll do what they damn well please, excuse me. I did suggest, as you've got, an amended version of B.
Yep.
And the reason I suggested it was, frankly, work of Vinnie and Elodia over 5 years, maybe, of struggling with this, has resulted in some agreements from the town and the school department as to when there'll be music, which yet definitely excludes practices, and also that the permits for events will be special and few. It's within that context that I think an amendment such as the one I proposed might be acceptable. But there's no question in doing this, I'm relying very much on these agreements. But I don't know how I don't know how to put the agreements into an ordinance, so that's all I wanted to say.
Okay.
And you can,
I have yours right
you
here.
have, because I made a copy if you.
Well, maybe the other counselors, but
I have it.
Just made,
Was this,
yeah.
Good, because it goes over.
Folks, we're going to give this another, we're getting a little pressure from other people.
For those of you that don't know, Vinnie has been working really hard over at Victory Field with regard to the sound system at the stadium. And now a switch has been set that has a low level and a higher level. The low level is for games during the week, and the higher level is for games on the weekend, because we know the stadium is just simply packed with people. But that is locked in now. This is not an opportunity for anybody to go in the booth and play with the decibel level. It is set. If it continues to be an annoyance for the community, we have Vinnie's word that it will be adjusted. That's a big word when you get it from him. So far, I have not heard anything. We have still had problems, as you know, because you all got my memo about the latest little deal. But that has been set. There will be no music for practices anymore at Victory Field. It's simply ridiculous. The other big issue has been the courts. So it happened again last week with Leslie College, renting our courts, playing a boombox, and I'd had it because I've spoken with them before. It's all going on at the basketball courts. So I fired off a memo to our town management and to our counselors, which I did get an answer to. The answer from Mike Driscoll, the chief town management person, is that signage is going to be put up at Victory Field regarding no amplified music on the courts, anywhere on these fields. It is only going to be stuff that is sanctioned by the town through the rec department, which we've had to go round about that again, and through the school system. This has taken, let's see, I started in 2010. We came together again when faced, I couldn't convince anybody then. We came together in 2013, roughly, I would say, Steve, where we put all these suggestions forward. We are now in 2019. If anybody dare tell me that I don't have patience to get something done, bite me. Sorry, everybody at home, but it's really been a long haul. So I've read Steve's thing, which I think is pretty good, but I think we can make it even simpler, which is simply that announcements and music at school department-sponsored graduation events and games, and special events with amplified sound permits from the recreation department or from the recreation department that conform with all rules and regulations, and I lost where I was writing here, set by or promulgated by the school and recreation departments. Vinnie contracted with both the schools and the recreation department for all these rules. We can probably write it even simpler, and I think we could work on that. But this is done. I think these signs have to go in every park in our community because Victory Field has been the toughest on this, but you have no idea how many calls I get from other people at Philip Park and Arsenal Park about the same issue. So it's been a long time coming. I'm going to go back to the manager again just to confirm when these signs are going to be in place. I asked for the opportunity to have some input in the signage, and if Vinnie could be involved with that, because all the new signage that is coming out in communities is when you are positive, put positives out first, and then you say what's allowed. It works much better. So one of the things I sent to Mike Driscoll was, enjoy our field, respect your neighbors, no amplified sound, please use your headphones, and then it's got the kind of international logos with a blasting thing with a no sign and a nice beautiful circle with a set of headphones. I think that's the way to go. It's just all come about in the last week, but I just wanted to say that because it's calming down, and I think we still have to get the word out about these things so people will acknowledge that this great effort has succeeded. So I think this section is going to need
Can I
some
make
work.
a suggestion, please? Can you and Dick and Stephen, can you, Dick and Stephen, sit down and rewrite this version to make it, I know
Simple
that
and clean.
Dick wants to take the whole thing out, but I think we need to have something in there. So can the three of you get together and write this section, this number B?
Yes.
You don't do it now, just write
I'm not going to do it now.
Okay, the
I
three
would
of you-
maybe look at B and C combined
B
if
and
there
C
was.
and put them together. Is that okay?
Good idea,
All
Tony.
right.
Okay,
Thank you.
and just to
Then
say,
we're gonna-
Steve also had said some, no person or organization shall play amplified music in parks without a permit from the appropriate town department.
Yes.
That says it all to me, from
Okay.
from the schools or town. But the schools have to get their permit
Okay.
from the recreation department.
Okay, that's fine.
So I'm just
That's-
saying, the simpler, the better.
Okay, well, would you write it and just submit it, please?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that, Tony. Don't snap at me, please.
not-
I've worked hard on
I'm
this
not
for a long
snapping,
time.
I'm sorry.
He's not snapping.
Sorry, I apologize. So
It's okay.
I'm usually not too snappy. We're gonna,
Mine will be short because I didn't know about that.
okay.
But regardless of, I guess the rewrite, the devil's in the details, right? So regardless of how it's written, you guys have done a great job with, levels of dB levels everywhere else. So we should be using, high or low levels, whatever that level is on amplified music, at certain parks or by the school or by the park and rec. Like, we shouldn't have, ambiguous statements like reasonable. And I guess, is there a music list, I guess is the other thing? It's more of a school question about the music, what?
Answer that question. Apologies again. Given the obscene music that was being played at Victory Field, which was pretty disgusting, given that we have young kids there and also older people walking the park, The school has put together a sanctioned music list. So they will not be able to go wild anymore with their own selections or plug in their own iPod or anything else. So that has been taken care of as well. I'm sorry, I've been overwhelmed with a lot of projects in this town and haven't gotten all the news out on everything.
Thank you. All right. Yes, last one, Dick.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear about that. I'm not in the loop, so I'm not privy to all the latest happenings, or the most important happenings, but it's good to hear about that. But I do think signage is one thing. It's good to have it, but that's not the complete solution. I mean, there's, at the grass field where the track is, there's signage that excludes dogs and bicycles. But anytime you go down there, you see plenty of dogs and bicycles there, even with the signage. So it's not just a matter of the signage itself, although I'm happy to see it coming.
Thank you. Okay, folks, I'm going to say that we're going to conclude this portion of this meeting. We've done quite a bit, and I appreciate Councilor Feltner for doing whatever she can to get some sort of minutes together. And Councilor Donato, I know, has been taking very careful notes. So the next version that we come up with will include all the changes we made tonight, and we'll be focusing on the rest of the exceptions, which we don't think are very many, especially if you guys rewrite the other one, and then we'll come back to 3 and 4. Now, I know there's been some folks who have taken on some tasks.
Can I just ask, you said we are going to do the other exemptions quickly later?
No, not, yes, quickly later, yes.
Okay.
People have taken on some volunteer tasks. I believe Elodia is going to show us the chart. I think Elodia and Marcia are going to go visit Farino's. Thank you, Councilor Falkoff, for visiting once on leaf blowers. Dick and Steve and Elodia are going to gather to rewrite the little couple paragraphs. We want to appreciate Captain Dupree, who sat through this whole meeting. And thank you very much, Captain Dupree. And Jesse, thank you, appreciate it. And of course, to all the other folks, all the other people who sat through the whole meeting, thank you very much. Good night.
So adjourned at 9:59.
So